I got cards finally. Okay, so first, we do have some T-shirts in the back that we are also giving away. So feel free to grab a T-shirt. Oh, if you're a VIP, if you have a gold bracelet, your drinks are on our tab. So if you have a, well, not the carnivory one, sorry. Oh, if you have, well, sure. I mean, if you have a carnivory one, you're probably okay also. Yeah, if you have the gold band, we're covering your drinks. Oh, it's too late for that. Oh, there's like some snacks in the VIP room as well. And for the after party and the Scammy Awards, we're going to try to let you guys, like, a lot of people are like, oh, wow, why are you starting so late? We're going to try and let you guys in earlier. We'll do our best. Right now, I think it's on the schedule for 7:30 for VIPs and speakers and 9 p.m. for everyone else. 8:30 at least for everyone else. I just want to give like the VIPs like just and speakers a little bit of time beforehand. So at least 8:30. We'll try to move it up earlier if we can get the VIPs in earlier as well. We're trying. We're working on that. Mel will keep me posted. All right. So we have 2 things left for the day, and it's going to be great. Bitcoin mining has become one of the most talked about things this year. It's really becoming a big topic. We have a couple of mining sponsors here. We have the Munich mining pool and we have Ocean mining pool. But Bob Burnett, who's going to be one of the speakers, has brought up an interesting topic of what are the miners doing for Bitcoin itself, besides, of course, like besides finding the Bitcoin. And we're going to do 15-minute presentations from the 5 mining companies that are here at the event. And they're going to talk about what they're doing to help decentralize Bitcoin and how they're helping the Bitcoin ecosystem. And then we're going to have a little panel debate on whether it's good or not to have a publicly traded mining company versus a private mining company. So I thought that would be a really interesting topic. And Harold Tarantula, if he's around, is going to come up first. And he's going to talk about what he's doing in the world of mining. And then we got, we'll have 4 more presentations. Each one will have a maximum of 15 minutes. And that is going to be a hard stop. And if you can do it earlier, it's like, well, back when I was studying in undergrad, there was one of the guys there with us who were studying geology, and a lot of the questions were it wasn't multiple choice, let's put it that way. And he used to say you can dazzle them with brilliance or baffle them with bullshit based on how long your answer is. All right, you're up, buddy.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hopefully I don't create any reverberation that break your eardrums. So Tone Base says I get 15 minutes. We're going to hustle through this thing, and hopefully you can follow along. My name is HT, a.k.a. Huddle Tarantula, and what I do is off-grid Bitcoin mining. Closer to the mic, X-File. Okay, so again, HT, Huddle Tarantula, I do off-grid Bitcoin mining. What I'm working on is procuring the last line of defense in regards to the mining industry. So when they tell grid miners that they need to curtail or tell somebody that's flaring on state land that they need to shut down because of geopolitical reasons or other, that's not a thing here. I will not stop mining Bitcoin until somebody puts a bullet in my brain. So quite literally, what I'm doing for Bitcoin mining, I'm trying to build an army of pleb miners that can do exactly what I'm about to show you guys so that we can never be stopped. So why mine Bitcoin off-grid? It places emphasis on governing authority at a local level, promotes individual accountability for success, it's a smaller environmental footprint, and it is very much sustainable. There's a few other reasons to mine Bitcoin off-grid, because when you price anything in Bitcoin, well, this is what you get. Last but not least, sovereignty to keep operating in the most efficient way possible despite geopolitical nonsense. When the government gets involved, this is the type of sandwich you get. When to mine Bitcoin off grid, local kilowatt rates is inconsistent, ASICs are loud and people can't handle it. Energy is available to you, but far for grid tie-in. Opportunity for load balancing during excess peak solar wind energy production, preventing wasted kilowatt hours. Thank you for the information, sir. And finally, you get tired of the rest of the world telling you what you could do, so you mine Bitcoin off grid. Where to mine off grid? Where you got access to energy, but only through a 4x4, where the alphabet soup agency can't really get at you, and where the resource is available but cost too much to bring on grid. Governments, there you go. Who mines Bitcoin off grid? The sovereign individuals and teams that can handle the following are the ones that can make it. We're dealing with temperatures that are negative 60 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, snow, ice, rain. The post office ain't got shit on us. Disciplined and skilled in the following. You gotta be able to build roads, okay? So take the government out completely at this point. You're gonna be able to assemble a data center, remote server monitoring, as network engineering, energy production. Like, you gotta wear a lot of hats. The individuals that can do this stuff and handle it can mine Bitcoin off grid. Why wouldn't you mine Bitcoin off grid? To mine Bitcoin off grid, the following will apply. You could build a data center out of wood or metal. Wood is kind of insecure. My first ones were done so because I was building out of the dirt, come out the mud. I asked nobody for anything. So I had pros and cons here, you know? I got power sources, PDUs, data connections, ASIC mining equipment, networking, securities, firewalls, remote servers. This is a long list to mine Bitcoin off grid, but you will become the most sovereign individual in regards to Bitcoin once you learn how to do this. And your Bitcoin mining operation can also be your pleasure room, by the way. So off-grid data centers, wood versus metal, pros and cons. As I said, if you're starting from nothing and you have access to energy in the middle of nowhere, if you can keep that a secret, you could get a data center built by your own hand and do so, you know, necessarily not break the bank. You can make it out of wood. I wasn't able to get metal containers to some of the places that I procure energy from, and I have to build them on site from scratch. So some people might say it's not efficient, but what are you gonna do? You're literally building the future in a way that people are taking wasted energy, and there's nothing to do except for build innovatively. This is what we come to. Do what you can. Off-grid mining power sources are vast. So we got solar, biomass, geothermal, wind, hydrogen, hydroelectric, natural gas. Each different source of power requires similar electric componentry to make viable operations, but these things are dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing, get a professional. Because if you get smoked out there off-grid, the only way they're finding you is by seeing the birds circling overhead later. Off-grid data connections, again, I said you'll become the most sovereign individual. You got cellular, satellite, mesh networks, things that literally create the ability for you to not be stopped. ASICs, big thing. Off-grid mining, well, there are very few pieces of equipment that can actually handle off-grid situations and elements. The elements with off-grid mining are very, very severe. So if you have like Bitmain versus MicroBT, Bitmain products will cause you to lose 40% of your hash rate in the first year off-grid. They can't handle the elements. But there are manufacturers out there that produce quality equipment, and knowing the difference between that will make or break you in this industry in regards to off-grid mining. So like I said, you got a few main manufacturers out there for SHA-256 equipment. The best one's at the top. Bitfury manufactures a good product, but the thing is it's private. Retail can't buy it, so it's difficult for me to talk to them. Networking is the main thing in regards to deployment when it comes to operations outside of power generation. And it's something you better become good at. So with that in mind, we'll go on to security. Network security is paramount. You got things out there that interact with our hardware that could potentially cause you to lose your hash rate overnight. And so it's paramount that you have network security for that. And then apart from that, you have physical security. You got loose lips. People that know where your operations are, they can be a big problem. Redundancies, cameras, etc. Outside of that, if you are operating your own facility, it's also recommended that you carry a firearm. I've seen people come up in trucks and pull in front of other individuals, bringing equipment out into the field, and rob them at gunpoint. So we carry on site also. These are things that are absolutely mandatory in regards to maintaining your operations and its integrity. So remote servers, those are another thing that you have to be good with. You got Windows, Linux, and we use also Raspberry Pis. I don't like the Windows products, by the way, if you can't tell. They are absolutely horrible. So we just talked a little bit about the software that's involved with mining and security. Let's go forward and look at firmware. So there's a lot of different firmware you can put on a miner, but at the same time, it could cause your miner to experience more stress. And so you want to mitigate that. It promotes the life of your equipment. It might be nice to overclock it, but if you have to buy a new PSU every 4 months, you're mitigating the actual sats you're able to stack long term. So some of the firmware is great if you use it properly, but if you stress your equipment with it, it really kind of shortens down the ability for you to continue, productively. Some of the tools that are required for off-grid Bitcoin mining are chainsaws, pulleys, ropes, shackles, lock bolts, winches, shovels, picks, wire strippers, like 4x4s, ATVs, heavy machinery, trailers, hoists, lifts. Everything that you could think of when it comes to a major construction operation is required to be implemented in off-grid mining. If you're not familiar with these things, you'll pay for a third party to come in and do them, and it will cost you dearly. It's potential to wreck your operation in regards to long-term viability. So you should become familiar with all these tools and how to implement them professionally at every level so that you can maintain your operation at a cost-effective way. So out and off-grid situations, PPE is paramount. The reason why? Because if you don't use it, the things that can happen to you, well, they're pretty self-explanatory. You're not going home at the end of the day. You're going to the hospital or worse, to the grave. So things like this are absolutely paramount when it comes to mining Bitcoin off-grid. So once you get all your stuff together and you learn what you're supposed to do, rack it up, plug it in, and start to play, It's basically just get your box ready for deployment, set up your louvers, and get all your equipment tested and in place and staged, and turn it on. If you do it right, you'll be home in time for pizza. And why do we mine Bitcoin only? Because Bitcoin's the real deal. You don't want to be wasting your time building on something that is not going to turn into anything. It's just energy expended for nothing. So, I think that meme sums up pretty much why I mine Bitcoin only. So outside of that meme, there are advantages to mining Bitcoin versus other coins. It's decentralized and distributed in real ways that nothing else can compete with. The integrity when it comes to other things that are trying to mimic Bitcoin is absolutely abhorrent. Why even try? It's horrible. Ask yourself, do you really want to mine shit and end up with a $5,000 paperweight? It's like, why? Why would you even put yourself in that risk scenario? Now, out of everything in regards to off-grid Bitcoin mining, keeping equipment that's SHA-256 and gives you the ability to sell your equipment back into the market where like a shitcoin miner will lose its actual profitability quite quickly and its ability to maintain your operation, you're literally also supporting something else that literally is propagating something similar to the fiat legacy system. So, if you're mining Kaka, you're supporting ideas that are on par with that, And if you're a fan of that disgusting crap and you hate freedom, well, mine shitcoins. Go ahead. But you mine Bitcoin for freedom off-grid in a sovereign way. You're preserving our network integrity, and you're creating more than half a chance. You're giving everything that you have in regards to your knowledge, your time. It's a soulful endeavor. You're building something that can't be taken from you except for by brute force. And if you're willing to stand for that, then you're my brother. Because right now, many people are falling for everything in regards to the bullshit that comes with the fiat legacy system and how it can distract you away from what's real. And if you're willing to mine Bitcoin off-grid or mine with me in that manner, man, I'll die for you. So we got sound money, And a bunch of idiots out there think we're wasting energy with it. But I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. And no matter what happens, we won't never stop. And that's all I got.
That's not me. Ah, yes, that's us. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So, first of all, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. It's always great to get to the US, because in the US, the Bitcoiners, they're really into it, right? They're really into it, and they really, really are so passionate, and much more passionate sometimes than in other countries where we're traditional from. So my name is Timo Steipe. I'm the CTO of Munich International Mining. And what we do is we're decentralizing Bitcoin by providing affordable energy to everyone. We're coming from a country, Germany. I think everybody knows Germany, where the electricity prices are crazy high. Like at the moment, you pay for 1 kilowatt hour around 50 cents. So it's so expensive that if you run even one Bitcoin miner, it will cost you about $12,000 a year, and not like the Bitcoin you get out maybe is not worth that much in 10 years or something. So what we did, we went to other countries where electricity is really, really, really cheap, and we mine there for ourselves and for our customers. So yeah, we're mining in 5 countries. The main countries are in Paraguay, it's in Kuwait, in Georgia, but not Georgia the state, it's Georgia the country. And we have a small project in Canada as well, a flare gas project. We have around 20 employees and started mining in 2016 in Switzerland, and yeah, moved on from there because also there the electricity price, like all over Europe, they just skyrocketed. And one more very important thing, what differentiate us from, for example, the public miners, like the publicly traded miners, is that we have no loans, we have no banks involved, no greedy investors, so we are completely for ourselves. And this is very important in bear markets, because in bear markets you also have to pay your electricity, you have to pay your employees, and if you're then stuck with some crazy loans you took in the bull market, you basically have a problem in the long run. So for us it's very important that we really only operate from our own cash flow and not with other money from anybody else. Yeah, and this is how it started. We started really small. In the beginning, we just wanted to mine for ourselves. We went to Georgia. This is here, below Russia, between Turkey. There was very cheap electricity, and actually they were in 2017 one of the biggest mining countries. Like Bitfury, for example, is from there, and they created industrial free zones, so tax-free zones just for Bitcoin miners. So you could go there as a Bitcoin miner as early as 2017 and mine tax-free. And this was like really mind-blowing. One of the first Bitmain conference actually was in Tbilisi in Georgia, and this is where we went, and we put a few miners, like 10 miners up there, and wanted to mine for ourselves, and then we expanded, we got bigger, and then we came to a point where the electricity provider said to us, okay, you take 1 more megawatt, just so you know, 1 megawatt is around 300 miners, and if you take 1 more megawatt, we lower your electricity price. And this was the time when we onboarded customers. So we like in a symbiosis with our customers, because the more electricity we consume, the electricity price for our miners go down and for our customers as well. And this is what we do. And now our main project is in Paraguay. This is, by the way, very interesting. I think later Bitfarms will be on stage and talk about it. And they are also in Paraguay. We are actually, our mining facilities, there's way bigger than ours. But we are like in, like, let's say, 10 miles from each other, like very interesting there. And what you see there is one of the biggest hydroelectric power plants of the world. It produces 14 gigawatt or 14,000 megawatts of electricity. For comparison, this is like 10 nuclear power plants. And people underestimate how much electricity like a river or a hydropower plant can actually produce. So they are producing 800% more electricity than the whole country needs. That means they have such a big surplus that they're really, really happy if somebody comes to take electricity. And for Bitcoin miners, it's the only thing what we need. Cheap electricity and like internet connection, Starlink, whatever, easy to put there, right? And that's why we're there. It's considered, by the way, one of the civil engineering wonders of the world because it's crazy huge. You can, like, if you stand in front of it, you think like, how can people even build this, and how can they build it in South America, right? Because Vegas obviously is also impressive, but to see there these huge power generation plants is really, really crazy. Yes, and this is what it looks like in a facility. This is like a small facility. You see these are transformers, and they're basically taking the electricity off grid, like the on-grid electricity, and put them into the mining containers, and then you're mining, and this is what it looks inside. And what you can see here, this is every miner from our customer has like a serial number and a name, because the customers, they own their own equipment with us. So they buy a miner, they put it there, it's their equipment, and then they can monitor it on our website, see on our website what it is, what it's producing, what's the status of it. They can put in their own pool, their own Bitcoin address, what they want, and can really, really be a part of Bitcoin mining. And in the end, in the best case, make money with it. Because we mine Bitcoin, because mining Bitcoin gets a cheaper Bitcoin. Like at the moment, the fees are pretty high. As I think most of you know, that's, let's say, not so nice if you want to send a transaction to a friend, but for us Bitcoin miners, it's great. Like we are as profitable as, like, I think 30 months ago. It's really great for us at the moment, and we are producing one Bitcoin at the moment for around $12,000. That means we pay $12,000 in electricity and get out one Bitcoin. And that's great for us Bitcoin miners. And here you see the team. It started very small. This is our here's our team in Georgia. This is in Paraguay. We employ a lot of locals in Paraguay because if you go to countries like Paraguay, you really need to be with the community there. You really need to be with the people. You have to drink with them, eat with them, be a part, or you will. If you're not with them and you're not real friends with them, you will get fucked in the end. They will scam you. So you need to be friends with them, and we are friends with them. They're repairing our miners there. They're doing everything. We do party with them, and yeah, it's great. It's great to build a little bit of wealth in the area as well, because Paraguay isn't very rich, so the average salary is like $400 a month. And this is in the main city, so if you go to the countryside, it's much less. And if you then pay like $1,000 a month, it's so much for them already. And for us, what is $1,000 in Vegas? I mean, basically nothing. It's also gets your feet like back on earth, as we say in Germany, so that you understand how unfair, let's say, the wealth distribution of the world is. And it's really, really great that we can see in those countries that we can really do something there with Bitcoin. And we, like our employees, they don't really understand Bitcoin, but we force them to understand Bitcoin by paying a part of their salary in Bitcoin. So either they take the money or not. So they're getting slowly but surely Bitcoiners. And yeah, that's also very good in our opinion. Yes, and this is the end. pretty fast and easy. If you have questions, please, please ask. You can visit our website, get a calculator if you think about if Bitcoin mining is something for you or not, or is it financially feasible. It's one of the best calculators out there. You can project everything in the future, not only for our operation, for every operation in the world. And yeah, and if you want to talk with us, you can do it here. And hopefully many of you get miners in the future. Thank you. So is there any questions? I can also go around with the mic. Oh, okay, okay. I say there.
Now it is, maybe, almost. There you go. Okay. Congratulations on winning in poker. So
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
God.
No, the watch is too
Yeah.
big for me. Yeah, I tried, but it was drunk yesterday. It was no way that I can do it by myself.
So if I have a bunch of miners in another state and our off-grid mining isn't going as well as it should be, can we ship them down to you? It sounds like it might be prohibitively expensive to ship them.
It's a very good question, and it is expensive. What we do is we set up containers, like normal shipping containers, not mining containers, in Florida, in Miami, and we wait until everybody sends their miners until it's full, and then we send it, like once a month, twice a month, depends, and then the miners arrive in our facility. It takes like one to 2 months because it's going by ship, and then it's very cheap. We're talking about like, I don't know, $150 a miner, something like that. But preferably, you can buy miners from us and that are already on stock. We put it in the racks and they start mining. So that's also possible. And yeah, and the electricity price, by the way, it ranges. It goes down to 5.5 cents. And if you just have one miner and you want to start really, really small, it's 7 cents in kilowatt hour. And yeah, I think that's a very good price. But it's Paraguay. Yeah, one more question here. I don't know where the...
Thanks. Do you pay on a threshold, or how does that work to receive payments in BTC? Is it Lightning, main chain?
Yeah, you can choose yourself. You choose yourself a pool, a mining pool. For example, you can choose the ocean pool.
Oh, you can choose any pool.
Oh yeah, sure. It's your miner, your rules. And this is also one thing I want to say that's very important to us, that people choose their own pool. Because at the moment we have so small pools, and or so only a handful, there are like, I don't know, 11 pools or something that are really there. And for everyone, you need to realize how bad the environment is. That's why I also appreciate the efforts of Ocean, what they're doing in trying to really, really change that. And I think much more people should look in that area of the pools, how bad it is. Though, so you change it and you choose your own pool. Very important.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Great. I think we're now finished. Thank you very much, and hopefully see you in Paraguay.
Where is Taylor here from CleanSpark? There he. Okay, there he is. Cool. Ready? All right.
All right, well, my name is Taylor Monig. I'm the SVP of Mining at CleanSpark. I want to say thanks to Tone and everybody from Unconfiscatable for having us. But today, Tone asked us to come talk about why public Bitcoin miners are good for Bitcoin. So I'm going to give you guys a little overview of CleanSpark, what we're up to, and ultimately why we're good for Bitcoin. All right, so CleanSpark is obviously a publicly traded company. Over the last few months, we are typically ranked either second or third amongst production of the publicly traded miners. We are mostly located in Georgia. We have 5 locations that are self-owned, self-built, self-operated, and we have a rather large hosting operation up in Messina, New York. Georgia the state.
Not like the previous presentation.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so this is Georgia the state, not Georgia the country. But to give you guys an idea of scale, this past month we crossed 10 exahash worth of miners, roughly 90,000 machines online, or 300 megawatts, depending on how you want to look at it. We're going to go back to connect each one of those points to why we're good for Bitcoin throughout this presentation. I always like to start with people. So adoption is something that I look at as good for Bitcoin. All of us can be extremely interested in this technology. We can all dedicate our lives to it. But if people don't jump on board, if the message isn't spread, then we're kind of falling on deaf ears. So one nice thing about CleanSpark is we have over 140 employees. 140 employees that make their living from Bitcoin mining, that see the direct benefit of Bitcoin mining. These are people that pay their bills with the money that they receive from their jobs. This is people that buy toys, things like that, all connected back to Bitcoin. And when you're talking about adoption, what better way to adopt people into Bitcoin than not only showing them the benefits of Bitcoin, but having it provide meaningful benefits to their life, right? Which I think is incredibly valuable. Another big point about why we're good for Bitcoin is continuing to increase the messaging about Bitcoin in the cities that we operate. So not only are we out to turn a profit mining Bitcoin, which we absolutely are, but we spend a ton of time doing education, doing podcasts, doing work down in DC that both promotes Bitcoin, promotes the message about Bitcoin, and of course, it promotes ourselves, right? Without Bitcoin being successful, CleanSpark cannot be successful, right? So I think between our CEO, our chairman, myself, our CFO, and some of our staff, we pumped out over 50 podcasts this year talking about Bitcoin, promoting the message of Bitcoin. We spoke at several conferences, not only Bitcoin conferences, but money conferences again, promoting CleanSpark, but also promoting Bitcoin to the wider world, right? So we're always out there not only providing jobs, providing education, but also participating in the media, driving Bitcoin outside of the group of us who already know the benefits of Bitcoin, right? So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of scale about how we operate, right? 10 exahash, very, very meaningful for securing the network. We're all here to secure the network. Everybody here wants to promote Bitcoin. It's hard to counter the idea that 10 exahash on this network is not helping protect it. The total number of machines, the total number of megawatts, right? Every megawatt that we use from one of these cities is tax dollars that we pay. Those tax dollars are going into roads, they're going into hospitals, they're going into education, they're going into all sorts of different things that help promote the cities in which we operate within. So one big one that I like to highlight, because it was one of the first sites that I got to work on when I got to CleanSpark, is Washington, Georgia. We acquired Washington, Georgia from a private mining company. That company was having some issues, had some back payments to the city on power. CleanSpark went in, paid that power bill. We've continued to pay that power bill with 100% utilization that the city has given us over the last 12 months. Just 2 months ago, you guys probably saw, we put in another 50 megawatts worth of power here at this site, doubling the amount of tax dollars that we're giving back to that city. Another one that I like to highlight is Sandersville, Georgia. A big thing for me is job creation, because that is something that brings a positive light into Bitcoin. So right now in Sandersville, we are building a 150 megawatt facility. And when you build a 150 megawatt facility, like some of our previous speakers have talked to, it's talking about power, it's talking about building infrastructure, it's talking about networking. We have hundreds of people on this site right now, either putting up a building, installing electrical, installing network, or racking miners. And every single one of those would not be here if it wasn't for Bitcoin, if it wasn't for a publicly traded miner putting in infrastructure in that town, right? So we have hundreds of jobs that we are creating at every single facility that we build. And that's one thing I want to highlight about CleanSpark. We're not just a host. We don't just buy machines and drop them. We actually build our own infrastructure. So we're paying money to engineering firms. We're employing engineers. We're employing builders, construction workers, electricians, all of these types of things. And all of those go back into promoting Bitcoin and getting Bitcoin a good image outside of the people that are in these types of rooms, right? When we talk about community impact, while we might be a big miner, we might be using equity to build our business, we might be doing all of these things that some Bitcoiners don't like, it's hard to disagree that this isn't good for Bitcoin. We are going to have $145 million in capital commitments in 5 years in one single county that we operate in, Georgia. You can't tell me that people that look at our business and look at what we're doing don't think that is a net benefit in the community that we're operating in, right? $2.5 million in local sales tax across Georgia on the energy that I was talking about. And that number will only increase as we continue to grow. To give you an idea of our growth, we went from 2.5 exahash when I started, I believe it was last August, to over 10 exahash this year. We've racked over 80,000 machines in that time. We're supporting renewable generation with Georgia Bull's Flex Rec program, and we have chamber memberships with a number of different counties and cities within Georgia. We're also all the way down to full scholarships for people at Gwinnett Tech, and we're building things like walking trails and nature, giving back to our community. So we might be a Bitcoin miner, we might be a publicly traded Bitcoin miner, but again, it's hard to argue with the things that are on the screen not being a net benefit for what we do. And this is my favorite part. I love working with people. I started mining Bitcoin in my college dorm room, as funny as that is, right? I started with one single miner. I scaled it up. I owned my own mining company. I owned my immersion company, and all these types of things. And the thing that connects all of it is the people, getting to connect with people, getting to learn, and getting to teach the things that you learn, right? So I talked a little bit about job creation on the side of building our sites, the electricians, the construction workers, putting them up. Now we're going to talk about our internal employees. We have the world's best operational staff, and I know Ben's going to have an argument with that, but I absolutely love our guys and girls out in the field. And the job creation and the job training is something that's very meaningful. A lot of these rural towns, there just simply is not jobs, and there's definitely not high-tech jobs, right? At the end of the day, these are crude data centers. They're not a tier 4 facility, but they operate on a lot of the same parameters that you would see in an Amazon, a Google, or a Microsoft data center. Our guys in Sandersville, Georgia, are able to come in. They're able to learn about electrical infrastructure. They're able to learn about networking. They're able to learn about firmware. And we even have one site that is cooled with immersion cooling, which is a new cutting-edge way of cooling computers. And the nice part about that is these guys have had more time working in tanks, working with servers, than the best minds at Microsoft, Google, and Amazon all combined. We have larger immersion deployments than most of the big data center companies in the world. And these guys out in rural towns are getting to learn about it. They're getting to put in time with this technology day in and day out, which I think is very meaningful and goes back to being good for Bitcoin, right? So not only are we promoting jobs on the outside, we have tax dollars going towards all of these cities. We're giving our employees training that is very meaningful, not only for now being successful at their jobs, but also being able to continue in their career and grow outside of Bitcoin if they do like. I'm sure all of you guys know about the race for HPC and AI. All the same skill sets that our techs are learning in our data centers can be cross-trained to go into different fields as they progress. So I wanted to highlight a little bit about the different cities and different kind of situations that we operate in throughout Georgia, right? So this is our College Park facility. We call this our urban facility. It's right in the middle of downtown Atlanta. This is 1.5 exahash, roughly 38 megawatts, and over 20 jobs. This is our Norcross facility, half an exahash, 17 megawatts, and this is our immersion facility and also our repair lab. So when it comes to learning about high-tech cooling applications for computers, this is where our guys are learning about it. They're also driving innovation on the side of repairing machines, right? So we try to minimize our unrepairable type machines, and this is another skill set in which our employees are learning all the way down to the ASIC level, being able to repair circuits, being able to repair chips, and all these types of things. Continues to promote why we're good for Bitcoin. Highlighted Washington, but I want to do it again. This is a rural town out in Georgia. Our site manager there is an ex-police officer that has now turned into one of the best data center operators that you'll ever meet. This is someone that previously didn't have a big career opportunity in the town that he was in, was considering leaving that town to go somewhere else, but has now stayed, not only became a tremendous data center manager, and is now going to be leading up our security that we are bringing in-house, providing more and more jobs to more and more people, right? This site has grown by over 100% in the last year, and the amount of jobs that it produces has done the same thing. Sandersville, Georgia, 150 megawatts being built. I've went through the trades. I went through the amount of taxes and everything, but this is another site that is going to double in size, that is going to double in jobs and double in taxes being paid back to the county in which it operates in. And our final facility, Dalton, which is a new one for us, again, another rural town providing high-tech, cutting-edge jobs and training that is all based around Bitcoin mining. So I really tried to connect this back to money that we're putting back into the community, things that we're teaching our operators, and then, ultimately adoption. Every single person that comes into our facility, sees our facility, works in our facility, knows that we're a Bitcoin mining company. And I would bet a lot of them go home, start to do research on Bitcoin, and continue to drive that. So that wraps up my presentation on why public miners, and specifically CleanSpark, is good for Bitcoin. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. First, Tone, thanks for bringing this topic up. I think we've had a chance to talk privately about it a few times over the last several months. And, I think conferences have a tendency to shy away from anything controversial or anything where two speakers might come up back to back and say something completely different, but not this one. And so that's why I come here. But I do want to say, to the degree that I say things that are contradictory to anybody else that's been up already or after me, I do it with complete respect. That Taylor, Timo, HT, Ben, who will come up later, they're all very good people. I believe they're here today, and I believe they go to their job every day trying to do the best thing for Bitcoin. One other thing I'll say before I get into the presentation, for those of you who don't know my background, I spent most of my career in the personal computer industry. I was part of a team that took Gateway public in 1993 and became the CTO there. And we turned into, by the end of the decade, by 2000, we were a $10 billion company, generating $1 billion in profit, 25,000 employees, and we're a Fortune 200 company. And some of those things might sound like big numbers, impressive numbers, but I will say this in hindsight. I believe it was a mistake for my company to have gone public in the first place. As great a ride as that was, I think we would have been better off never doing it. And so part of my perspective today comes from what I learned from that experience. And Tone, yeah, for those of you who maybe are a little younger, this was our brand. We were known for our cow spots. And around the year 2000, this was one of the 10 most recognizable brands in the world. We were up there with like Coca-Cola and AT&T. Okay, so, but now I'm a miner, and I'm a private miner. And I take great pride in that. I believe that what I do and what guys like HT who are up earlier do is an extremely important and vital part of this infrastructure. And I titled this Private Mining and Mining Privately. So not only being a privately held company, but doing what we do in relative obscurity is also, I think, somewhat important. I sometimes have had a debate within myself as to, do I come to these sort of forums? Do I go on podcasts? Do I do these things? Because part of what I'm doing is calling attention to myself, but I tell you, I don't do it for myself. Ultimately, I've reached the conclusion that there's some messaging and education that are fundamental, and that at least to a certain degree, I can offer some perspective, that of an old man who's been there before, and hopefully help others. So to get started, I'm going to take a completely different perspective than maybe some of others have been up before. So I think when we think about what we're trying to do, there has to be a thought horizon. How are you thinking? When you get up in the morning, what are you thinking about? most of us, because of the pressures of daily life, whether that's personal or professional, get forced into the near term. We think about the here and now. Here within the community, what's going to happen with the halving? What's going to happen with the spot ETF? You know, should we allow ordinals in a block transaction? Like, those sort of things are at the forefront. Completely meaningless things in the long run. I believe that we are trying to create money for the next 1,000 years. And we have to think from that perspective, at least on a regular basis. So I try to, the best I can, to take that perspective, not only in the way I form my company, but when I come to places like this and I talk to people, you know, let's think about what we're trying to achieve and where do we want to go. And you'll see in a second why I think about 1,000 years. I believe in my heart that we can be money for the next 1,000 years, but only if we create the right environment and cultivate it properly. Now, I don't know if you've ever asked yourself this question. When would Bitcoin cease to work? What would make it not work? I believe there are two conditions at the end of the day. It's not governments or things like that directly. But one is, what if energy was free to everybody and on demand? It kind of breaks proof of work, right? At that point, if everybody can get all the energy they want whenever they want it, then we don't really work. We need something different. We're obviously a long way from that. The second is, what if energy is completely permissioned? Meaning nobody has access to any energy without the permission of a central authority. In my mind, having put a lot of thought into this, I believe these are the two conditions that will cause us to fail. One, the first one, I would view as almost a utopia, right? We don't need Bitcoin, we've achieved utopia. Energy is free and on demand to everybody at all times. And the second is, I can't turn on my microwave without somebody giving me permission to do so. Now, there was a Russian scientist named Kardashev. Anybody ever heard of the Kardashev scale? Okay, a decent number. Kardashev is a Russian scientist, and what he said was you can measure how advanced the civilization is based on its ability to harness energy. So if you back up 2 million years when we didn't even have fire, we were a zero. Now we've been marching forward from that for 2 million years, and we still haven't made it to a type 1 society. In a type 1 society, we can harness, essentially at will, all the energy available in the planet. A type 2 one, you can harness all the energy in the solar system. Type 3 in the galaxy, and etc. up to type 5. So we're sitting here at about a 0.7 right now. Took 2 million years to get there. This is not necessarily my expertise. I would call it more of a hobby for me, but I really enjoy these kind of thought experiments and playing around with the physics and the science of this. And I believe that we're about 1,000 years away from being a type 1 society. And when we are a type 1 society, we will have free energy. Well, we will have all the energy we want on demand. The question is it free or is it permissioned? Either way, it probably is the end of Bitcoin, and something new has to come forward at that point. Now, it's very difficult to think in 1,000-year horizons. If you think about 1,000 years ago, could people imagine a group of us sitting in a room in Las Vegas talking about this topic? Probably impossible. But I think very high-level macro trends, I think we have some chance of thinking about how all that comes together. So I realize I'm quite far away from public mining versus private mining. So let me try to get to that. If we look at the course of energy for humans, I mentioned we started with fire. We learned to domesticate animals and harness their energy. We moved to using hydroelectric power. Those of you who saw our launch at Ocean last week at at my facility in South Carolina. We were exemplifying that. We found fossil fuels. We've put grids in place to distribute the energy. All of these things have contributed to society progressing forward. Energy is more reliable. It's more available. We've become more civilized. All good. However, control of energy has become more centralized. It's become more expensive, and it's also become more permissioned. So I find it interesting that one way to look at this is we are on a path toward a more permissioned, centralized energy system. Now, a lot of people in the Bitcoin community, as we get attacked, I think have fallen back on what Bitcoin can do for grids, base load, demand response, all those sort of things. There's some truth to it, but with a very limited amount of time, I don't want to go too deep. What I would say is be careful when you start justifying Bitcoin to people using that argument. You know, we're here to create a new form of money, free and open to everybody. We don't have to fall back on these sort of things. The reason Bitcoin exists is not to make grids better. That's a potential positive side effect, but it's not why we're here. And I think when I see people start falling into that justification, it's someone who is not confident in what we're really here for, who is trying to play their game and not our game. All right. Some of you may have heard this before, but I take the mining world, I divide it into 3 categories: rabbits and horses and elephants. And these are site sizes. Okay? The elephants are the big sites. I categorize it about 20 megawatts or more. They're very powerful. They take a lot to build. They often take a long time to build. You can't build too many of them too quickly, and they're easy to hunt. Rabbits are probably obvious. They're on the other end of the scale. They're the individual miners who have an S9 in their garage or an extra S19 sitting in a server closet. The horses sit in the middle. They're still relatively powerful. They can be produced fairly quickly. They're very mobile. They're hard to hunt. I didn't say that about rabbits, but if you think about a farmer's field filled with rabbits, and the farmer goes out to shoot the rabbits, what happens? They scatter. Same thing with horses. I mean, God forbid somebody's hunting horses, but if somebody were, they're going to scatter. If somebody goes out to hunt elephants, not the same result. Now, it's my belief that ultimately, on the commercial side, all commercial miners will realize they have to make a choice. Do I want to be what I call a captive elephant or a wild horse? So captive, I'm going to simplify it for time purposes here today. Captive basically means you are beholden to a third party to give you permission for your energy. And a wild, HT talked a lot about wild. Wild is somebody out there doing it themselves, generating energy themselves, whether that's flared gas or their own hydro facility or biomass or something like that. Captive elephants tend to be mostly public companies, and wild horses tend to be mostly private companies. Now, I got like the 2-minute sign here, so I might go a little long, sorry guys. Basically, public companies, as I said, they're rooted in the financial system. They're highly attractive, first and foremost, because they give very quick access to capital. If you have a good business plan and a good management team, sometimes even if you don't have those things, you'll find a massive amount of capital flowing in very quickly, and that gives you a lot of power and a lot of responsibility. It can lead to a lot of greed if you don't have the right people in place and the right governance and the right discipline in place. It forces the company to start measuring itself in fiat, though. Wall Street and shareholders measure companies in fiat, and they do it on a 90-day cycle. Both of those things are somewhat at odds with the way we look in the Bitcoin world, right? You know, we're low time preference people, and we want to measure ourselves in Bitcoin. The other thing is that companies, by the way, I think both CleanSpark and Bitfarms are really good public organizations. The question is, over the long term, just like I was at Gateway in 1993 and I'm on this stage today, what will happen as the management changes? What will happen as pressures from Wall Street come in, and shareholders and the SEC and those sort of things? And what you'll find typically is it's very difficult for a public organization to maintain its culture over a long period of time. And they start to get driven by these forces coming from the fiat system. In the end, I think what it means is it's very difficult for a public company to consistently keep itself within the ethos of Bitcoin. In the interest of time, because I'm actually out, but I'm not going to stop yet, but the private companies, and hopefully you can read it here, they're often owned by private people. They make their own rules. They measure themselves by whatever metrics they want. In my company, at least, we measure ourselves in Bitcoin and in what we're doing for the Bitcoin network. It's a lot easier, thus, to stay within the ethos. So I think in the end, Bitcoin can lead the world till we get to this next Kardashev level. I think that's a good way to phrase like where we're going. But does it lead to utopia or dystopia? If we follow a path that is only the captive elephants that become our infrastructure, we play into the creation of a permissioned energy network. On the other end of the spectrum, I would say if there was an ideal, it would be that 100 years from now or 200 years from now, what we have billions of rabbits. And that would essentially make Bitcoin completely immune. People couldn't shut down our hash power. And if those of you who were here yesterday, we talked about block template creation. And if each of those people were creating their own block templates, it would make censorship completely impossible. So the big issue, I won't go into it too much here, maybe we can get it into the panel. I think captive elephants are going to have to be prepared for a lot of attacks. They're front and center. They're going to have to be able to withstand this. I'm not saying next Tuesday or next week or next year, but in the long term, they have to be very prepared for this. It's going to be very difficult for them over that time period. I believe that the path to utopia is a robust distribution of hash rate and block template creation amongst wild rabbits and wild horses, and a whole group of private miners essentially working in the shadows that nobody knows exists. They provide the security when those attacks get hard. And in a 1,000-year horizon, I believe there'll be several attacks and there'll be several times when the shadowy private wild horses and rabbits save this network. So I'll wrap it up there. You know, here at Barefoot, you know, we live the ethos and we love being a wild horse. So.
All right. Who is ready to learn about farming some corn? Listen to that reaction. Yeah, let's farm some corn. So my name is Ben Gagnon. I'm the Chief Mine Officer of Bitfarms. I have been a long-time Bitcoin miner. I've been mining since 2015 full-time. And I even was rug-pulled by Butterfly Labs trying to buy my first miners back in 2013. That's how long I've been in this space. To start off really quickly, I'm just going to answer Tone's question right off the bat. what is the purpose of a public miner? Like, well, we at Bitfarms, we love mining. Like, it's absolutely our passion is waking up every day and mining. But our focus as a company is delivering high quality liquid exposure to Bitcoin mining. That's what we do. We provide you high quality liquid exposure to Bitcoin. And to understand this, let me ask one quick question. Who here likes drinking beer? Raise your hand. How many of you brew your own beer? 2. That represents the home mining community, right? Everybody, we know this from economics, specialization is a very, very core concept and principle when it comes to economics. And for the vast majority of people in the world, does it make sense to go out there and invest your time and your capital so that you can plug in one ASIC at home? Probably not, right? Just the same way that it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to invest in, boilers and a whole brewing kit just so that you can drink a beer. So we, as public miners, serve a very special role, helping people who would otherwise not be able to mine Bitcoin in a trusted, audited, liquid way. If you want to buy a miner and plug it in, by all means, go ahead and do that. But from my experience, what happens when you've put all your money into miners and those miners break, you start calculating how much it's going to cost you to go to bed. Oh shit, it's going to cost me $1,200 to go to bed right now because my miners are down. I better fix these miners. It's not a really practical thing for most people. And so just like most people don't make their own beer or don't make their own car that they drive or make their own soda, large public companies can do that more efficiently, more effectively, and they can utilize capital markets in order to grow in a way that public or private people just can't. So that's the purpose of a public company or a public mining company like Bitfarms. That's their entire focus. Safe harbor, who cares about that? Just a couple of quick things about our company. We try and take things a little bit differently as a company. We are really, really focused not on trying to be the biggest Bitcoin miner in the world. That is not our goal. Our goal is to be the most profitable. That's our goal. And that is not the goal of every Bitcoin miner out there, but I believe it should be. So how do we do that? Well, we focus on high efficiency. We just announced a transformative fleet upgrade. We're going to rapidly improve our efficiency about 29%. Our miners are now halving ready, so we are ready for this upcoming halving. We're incredibly capital efficient because we were very disciplined on buying miners, and we have a lot of flexibility in our purchase. This chart is really heavy, but this is one of the most informative charts that you will ever see on Bitcoin mining, halving, and the economics. There are several things I'm going to walk you through right here. Every single chart that you see here is a halving epoch. And there's 2 things on that chart. There's Bitcoin price, and there's hash price. Hash price is what miners make in terms of revenue. We look at it in 2 ways. Bitcoin per unit of hash rate, or Bitcoin per terahash, or dollars per terahash, which is usually the way that people look at it. There are a few things that you'll notice here. One, there's one massive bull run for miners every single halving epoch. That is very, very clear trend. What you'll notice in the first 2 is that this was relatively early, right? So in that first halving epoch, there was almost nothing going on with Bitcoin. A small increase in price resulted in dramatically increased mining rewards economically. So it happened really early. Who knows when the first ASICs came out? Anybody? 2013. Who knows what month? March, but very close. And what you'd see here, ASICs. So this is what's happening here at the beginning. The market was just getting started. These are computation markets that have taken years and years and years to develop and mature. But over the last 2 halving epochs, it's been very clear. Hash price follows price. And the second that price starts pulling back, so does hash price. And what you end up with is a trend that's inescapably down. Now, what's very, very different about this halving epoch, that's unlike any other halving epoch that we've ever seen before, are 3 things. 1, every single time that we've had a halving before, the hash price from its peak is down effectively 98, 99% from the peak. Because of the China mining ban, which we're still benefiting from, it's put an artificial bottleneck on growth of the network, And we're actually at a lower level of hash rate than we otherwise would be with the China mining ban. And so when you look at this 75% drawdown versus the previous 99, 98, 97, it's showing that we're actually entering into this halving with the strongest relative hash price that we've ever entered a halving with before. Nothing like this has ever come close. The second thing, we have now, with all of this ETF excitement, the potential to set an all-time high prior to halving. That has never happened. That always happens after halving. The implications of that are nobody knows how to price in, nobody knows how to calculate. And then the third thing is the transaction fee market is booming. Transaction fees now are contributing somewhere around 10% of our mining revenue. At halving, that becomes 20 if that same trend continues. That's not priced in. And so we're entering the next halving with the best hash price economics, the most bullish, I think, price trend we've ever had going into a halving. And we have the most bullish transaction fee market we've ever had. We are set up for something that's truly, truly incredible when it comes to the next halving. I don't think anybody has this priced in correctly. The other thing, I guess also a fourth point, mining hardware. This is the best time to buy mining hardware since 2021. We have not seen prices and payback periods like this for almost 3 years. It's incredibly cost effective now. So what are we doing about it? We just upgraded to these Bitmain T21s. This is the most powerful air-cooled Bitcoin miner that's ever produced, and we are now the largest purchaser of the most powerful air-cooled Bitcoin miner ever produced. We bought 35,888, and we have an option for another 28,000. Why did we get an option? Well, this space is volatile. We all know it's volatile, and it requires incredible amounts of capital to secure equipment like this. What we can do with that option is we basically defer all the capital obligations associated with those 28,000, and we still lock in that low price today. So we've taken the price that we think is the lowest that we've seen since 3 years. We've locked it in throughout the entirety of 2024. And we did that for a 10% deposit that can be applied toward the purchase price. So this is something that's new. A lot of miners have not really gotten into optionality before, but we as a company are starting to really look at options, both in terms of the Bitcoin side of things, but also now in terms of the miner hardware supply of things. Because one of the greatest ways that you can lose money in this business is by buying a miner for too high of a price. That is the easiest way to lose money in this business over and over and over and over again. You cannot buy a miner at a high price and watch it depreciate, because you will lose in this trend that I outlined before. So we're buying these new miners. The cost efficiency of this upgrade for us is really, really cost effective because we have been waiting and waiting and waiting to make this upgrade. So some of the miners that we're pulling off are 80 terahash, and we're plugging in a 233 terahash miner in their stead. The other upgrade options before that was like 140. So the marginal gain that we're getting from this and the cost efficiency of this upgrade is massive. This is a little overview of what we've done. A little bit of overview on the purchase and the option. And this is how we are growing as a company. We are right here. Actually, we're at 6.4 exahash today, 35 watt per terahash efficiency. Not the highest efficiency because we've been waiting so long to buy these miners because it wasn't the right time to grow. So like I said, we're not trying to grow because we're trying to grow for growth's sake. We are making investments that we think are going to deliver incredible returns. That's what we're focused on. So we are set to grow almost double our hash rate within the next couple of months. This is our halving ready position. We also maintain that option to grow to 17 exahash, assuming that the bull market is coming that we're all anticipating. Why do we do this? This is a sensitivity table on hash price, and I realize that the numbers are maybe a little bit hard to see, but this is basically where we're at now. What you see here across the top is network hash rate, and each one is going up 10% or down 10%. Down here, we've got Bitcoin price on the side. So here we are, I updated this, it says 43,600. We're at 9.4 cents hash price. These are the range of economic scenarios that we can look at as a miner for revenue. If Bitcoin network hash rate goes up to 600 and Bitcoin price was still here, we'd be at about 7.8. Same thing if you look anywhere else, right? With the miners that we're buying, the operating cost, the direct operating cost is about 2.5 cents per terahash. It's really, really hard to imagine a scenario in the immediate term where this is not going to be cost effective. Because if the halving were to happen tomorrow, this is how that table would look. And you'd see here, this orange line. For those traders out here, this is the resistance line in Bitcoin mining economics. This is that area where there's enough people operating at this direct operating cost that if the revenue falls below this level, people start underclocking, people start pulling machines off rack, people start maybe curtailing more in order to reduce their electricity price. This is where the resistance occurs, around this 4.5 mark. And it will continue as it goes down to 4 cents or 3.5 cents or 3 cents. More and more miners will pull off, more and more slowdown will happen, and then that profitability will cede to the rest. And so how you make your money in this space is buying miners at the right time, but also positioning yourself so that you're so cost effective that even in the worst case scenario, everybody's got to turn off before you. So you want to be in that lower third, lower quartile of low cost producers. And that's what we've accomplished here with our purchase. In order to do this, we're pulling off 45,000 miners. And these are good, profitable miners. Hodl Tarantula was talking about these specific ones earlier today. These are really, really good, profitable miners. But they're not getting the most utilization out of our facilities and out of our infrastructure. And we're able to grow the company, improve our profit margins significantly. And we're one of the few companies out there that's looking at next year with the halving. We anticipate we're going to mine a similar level of Bitcoin next year that we did this year because of our growth plans. But we're going to pull off these 46,000 miners. We can either do two things with them. We can either redeploy those into a low-cost scenario, like an energy trading scenario, which would be our preferred, or we can sell them. Super simple. So this is where we are, 6.3 exahash, 35 watt per terahash. This is where we're going, and this is where we have the optionality to grow. So for investors who are looking at getting into Bitcoin mining or getting into this space, there's several things that you need to look at. One, is this something that you want to do yourself? Because for a lot of people, it might be like people who are in this room, maybe are a lot more interested in Bitcoin. Maybe it does make sense for you to put in that time and that effort and those resources. But for a lot of people who are a little bit more casual, or maybe don't want to deal with their wife complaining about 5 ASICs driving up a lot of noise in the garage, then maybe a public miner is a way for you to still get access and exposure to this industry that's performing incredibly well. This is what this positions us to do. This is kind of where the public companies are in terms of their hash rate guidance. And like I said, we're down here right now currently, but with the order, we expect to position ourselves basically as a top 5 miner. So with that, that is my talk on Bitfarms and what we do. Again, large publicly traded Bitcoin mining company on NASDAQ and the Toronto Stock Exchange, stock ticker BITF. We are up, I think as of today, I looked just markets closing, we're up 502% this year to date. Bitcoin's up 200 some percent. We're up 502%, and all of the Bitcoin miners are up massively compared to Bitcoin. So if you're looking for that leverage exposure in your investment accounts, in your retirement accounts, Bitcoin miners are something that you can look to for that leverage exposure. All right, thank you.
Mike, oh, here we go. All right. I got a question for you, Ben, before you go, because Nico is going to be moderating the panel, so I'm not going to get to throw my questions in, so I was going to do it right now. So the two scenarios, the two concepts you are laying out is the at-home miner versus the publicly traded miner. What about the in-between? What is your view on that? So for example, since we're friends, maybe I'll be able to buy a few of those miners you might be selling at a little bit of a discount, and then ship them to one of the private mining farms like Munich or Barefoot, who there's very few people I trust in the space, but there are a few who I would trust with my miners to run for me. Then I don't have to worry about the maintenance of that miner, and I would be willing to compete and paying more for the electricity in order to try to keep the Bitcoin space as decentralized with mining as possible. So what's your view on that scenario? Your competition being people willing to mine even at a loss to keep Bitcoin decentralized?
You know, people willing to mine at a Bitcoin loss is a part of the network for sure. That is definitely happening on a reasonably large scale. What I would say though is that if you are looking to support the network, mining at a loss is not a very sustainable way to do that. You know, like you can make very good money with a hosting contract for sure. What I would say is that, again, it depends on what your real interest in this is. What is your objective, right? How much time do you want to put into maintaining these hosting agreements, into monitoring the performance of the equipment, the revenue, you know, following up with people if there's downed hardware? It's really, really a pain for some people. You know, if you have a high level of interest in this, though, that could be very, very well suited for you. And there's a lot of family offices, high net worth individuals who do work with, you know, private hosting companies, and they're getting their Bitcoin exposure that way. That's totally a viable way to do that. It's different strokes for different folks. There's a wide gamut of ways to invest in mining.
All right, awesome. And on that note, I'm going to hand it off to Nico to run the panel. We'll put maybe 35 minutes on the clock, but we can give you more time. Let's see how this goes.
All right, everybody. How's everybody doing? We're in Las Vegas. Woo! Hi, guys. My name is Nico Moran. I'm the host of Simply Bitcoin and also the director of content strategy at Swan. I love making Bitcoin content, and it's really an honor to be on stage with all these people, with Ben, with Bob, with Hodl Tarantula, which I all consider friends, and of course, we have Timo and Taylor. So today, the topic is essentially going to be what's better for Bitcoin. I'll answer this like my personal opinion. I think both are incredibly critical, and I think they're both good for Bitcoin. But the debate's going to be big public companies versus small private miners. I think there's pros and cons to both. But before we start the debate, I just want to say this. We are living through the separation of money and state. And I think the people that benefit the most of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for are really going to do everything in their power in order to maintain that privilege. We've already seen that on a nation-state level with the China ban. So I'm very, very interested. I'm very excited and interested to hear what these gentlemen have to say. And I'm going to start it off very spicy. Ben, Bob called you a captured elephant. What would you have to say about that?
Good question. Not starting off easy, but you know, I mean,
I also I'm here so that when they start fighting, I'm going to pull them apart.
Bob's not wrong. I mean, there's certain challenges to being a public company for sure. Undoubtedly true. Regulatory, capture is real, and we have to conform our behavior so that it complies with regulations, which are constantly changing. That is 100% true. At the same time, it is a natural tendency for companies and industries to grow and to scale and to corporatize and to securitize. Like, this is a natural function of every industry. I don't see why Bitcoin mining should be any different. And when we're looking at targeting, $1 million Bitcoin price, and you're expecting to get there without institutional money inflows, like, you're dreaming. You need to have these publicly traded companies that enable this institutional money to invest, because they are not going to be able to, JP Morgan is not touching Hodl Tarantula's sites. JP Morgan is not even touching our company, right? So you need those public companies, I think, there in order to provide a vehicle for that institutional money to come in. That's why everybody's so excited about the ETFs. That's why people have been so excited about Bitcoin miners who served as this kind of like ETF before there was an ETF. This is the purpose that we serve.
100%. So, Bob, what would your response be? And by the way, for the record, I tend to agree with Ben, because you see BlackRock has a lot of these publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies. They have them. They own a lot of the stock. So I agree with Ben. What would your response to that be?
Well, there's the current optics and there's the long-term optics. And I mentioned earlier, I came from this market. Actually, I was talking to Taylor earlier, and my company, Gateway, at our peak was actually, that company alone was bigger than the entire Bitcoin mining industry. That's how much revenue we were generating.
Humble brag.
10 million
And I'm not
computers a
taking
year.
full credit for that, but I'm just saying, that we're still in a very immature state. That's my point. Bitcoin mining will absolutely dwarf Gateway. It will dwarf the entire personal computer industry at some point. So now, the question is, what behaviors change with time? How do company cultures change with time? And what sort of decisions happen as those cultures and behaviors change? We've had, like I said, I started this, and I'm very genuine. Bit Farms, Clean Spark. There are a couple other of the big miners that I have a lot of respect for. There's a couple that I don't. I will call out one, which is Core Scientific, which is coming back. And I think they are a poster child for what happens when a public company goes awry, when massive capital inflows come in without governments, without governance, without controls, where greed overtakes the mission. I respect Ben's mission. Ben's mission, as he said, if I said it right, was to be the most profitable Bitcoin miner. I don't have a problem with that, as long as it occurs within the confines of always making decisions about what's best for Bitcoin. And what I liked about what Ben said was he said, my goal is not to be the biggest miner. Because I'll go back to Core Scientific. If we were sitting on this panel with one of the Core Scientific guys, especially going back, and I said, well, what's your goal? Or if you had the choice to have 100%, if you were the only miner available, I think their behaviors were toward that. That would be bad for Bitcoin. I see Mechanic in the back. He's talked to me in the past about, in the pool world, as pools got to a certain size in history, where maybe they would hit the 40% range or so. In the past, the community would revolt against that, and the network, and it would be the death spell. But I don't think we're in that period today, and I worry about that. I worry about just the captive elephants being the whole network. Not tomorrow, not 2 years from now, maybe after I'm dead. But again, I talk about 1,000-year money. So I'm thinking in 1,000-year terms.
Thanks, Bob. And I'm going to pass it on to Taylor, right, to add to this idea of the captured element, the captured elephant. So what are your major concerns, and how do you plan to navigate the regulatory environment, right? So the last year or so, for the first time in American history, the U.S. Treasury sanctioned open source software, right? We have the push by the OFAC. You had Maripool a couple years ago push the first OFAC compliant mining pool. Clearly, it's a lot easier for governments to apply that type of pressure to what Bob says, the captured elephants, these large, big mining facilities, big mining companies. How do you plan to resist that? How do you plan to stop that? And you mentioned the 2 states that you were in. You mentioned you were in Georgia. You have 5 facilities in Georgia, and you mentioned New York State. And even though your company provides tremendous amount of jobs, New York State is incredibly hostile towards Bitcoin mining. So what would your response be to that?
Well, I mean, we could have regulatory issues from a number of different things, right? Like you bring up open source software. We could also have it at the energy level. It could come at us from a different, perspective. So we're just going to have to take it, step by step. One thing I do want to go back to, and it might not be a real popular opinion in this room, though, is driving, what's good for Bitcoin. That's what you asked earlier, right? Adoption is good for Bitcoin. And to be blunt, you're not going to have adoption at the high level from even at-home investors or JP Morgan without publicly traded miners. No one is going to invest in Bitcoin at the levels that we would like to see. We won't see adoption if people really think that the network is secured by people running Bitcoin miners in their home. I do respect running Bitcoin miners in your home. I started as somebody who ran their first miner in their dorm room. But what's good for Bitcoin is adoption and driving more people into it. And we're going to need the public miners to do that.
Can I add one thing really quick
Of
onto
course,
that, Nico?
Ben, go for it.
You know, there's the law of toxicity where too much of anything can be a bad thing. And I think we get really caught up in the home mining. You know, like think about what are the implications of every single person in the world having one Bitcoin miner to themselves and an equal prorated share of the network. Think about what happened during COVID. Do you really want the masses to have an equal, an equal hash rate and to be easily controlled by the government to be like, hey, Bitcoin is bad and now we're all going to be OFAC compliant and everybody convert your miners over to OFAC compliance? Like the masses are going to do whatever they're told. And if the masses are in control, that's a problem. You know, like the people who are home mining now are hardcore plebs. They're not the people who are going to do that. But if you want true universal home mining, that is the result, and then Bitcoin is compromised.
And I want to go back to the regulation piece, right? One thing that we're working on at CleanSpark with regulation, and it's led by Isaac Holyoke, our Chief Communication Officer, who's here in the room, is education, right? A lot of the stuff that we're seeing from regulatory around energy and software is from lack of understanding of energy and software and how it can have an implication in the real world, right? Especially talking about open source, the AI race right now, and whether AI should be something that's open source, should be ran by private companies, should the government have a hand in it, right? We're dealing with the same things in Bitcoin mining where it's education first. Like people really need to understand what we're doing, how energy affects, social, like the whole entire social complex of humanity, right? And how that all works and how Bitcoin can be a huge proponent of driving it to be better, to strengthen our grid and all these things. So going back to your question, I think it's a lot of education around making sure the regulatory stuff doesn't come in a negative way.
So, and thanks for that, Taylor. So, unfortunately, I'm not between you and Tarantula. So, I'm close to Bob and Ben, but Tarantula's right next to you. Tarantula, you're building an army of pleb miners, and you're the last line of defense, like you said. What would your response to Taylor and Ben's comments be?
I don't concern myself with government regulations as I am the most sovereign Bitcoin miner. So if people are looking for number go up quick and fast in a hurry, they're looking to public companies and other things to validate to the masses so that they can experience that. I am a firm believer that Bitcoin will rise to the top and become dominant just on its own merit over the long term because the truth will stand as it is timeless. And that if you have a long enough timeline and view of things, you will not fall or succumb to thoughts like this, that these things are absolutely necessary in order to see a mass adoption. Because the truth itself is going to be apparent over the long term, and people will gravitate towards the hardest, soundest money over the long term. And as this happens, the price will go up. We are at less than 2% of global domination or penetration when it comes to Bitcoin at whole. So, I mean, if once we reach the level of 10%, 20%, 30% over time, the number's gonna go up, period. There's no other way around it. It's a supply and demand issue at that point. And so I would say that anybody that is quick to bow down and worship these public companies because of number go up and mass adoption is just being short-sighted.
Ooh,
Well, let me counter that real quick, right? So
things are getting spicy.
No, this is actually a really, really good conversation, right? So we're talking about Bitcoin rising to the top tier. Everybody in this room is here because we all believe in Bitcoin, right? We all believe what Bitcoin can do for people. And there's a specific moment in each one of your life in which you turn to Bitcoin, right? For me, it was 2008 in the financial crisis. That's what sparked my Bitcoin adventure. Obviously, I didn't connect that till later, right? But to counter that, why would we not want to have the impact faster? If we all think that Bitcoin is this great thing for humanity, it's good for people, it's going to help every one of us, so why would we not want to utilize our time here on Earth to have the biggest impact on driving Bitcoin adoption and pushing Bitcoin into the community as fast as we possibly can?
So in response to pushing something like this as fast as you can, you have to be empathetic and compassionate towards the people that don't understand what it is you're doing and why. Hyper-Bitcoinization comes with a massive amount of pain to the masses. Adoption by them is going to be difficult, and it's going to be at necessity. They'll get it at the price they deserve. And so there could be a great amount of pain procured with that. I mean, things to happen organically and naturally, in a manner that you're teaching and shepherding people in a way that is the comfort level that they can handle, instead of just pushing and forcing, I think is a better way, because it kind of streamlines the adoption instead of creating a hyper Bitcoinization style of adoption.
Thanks for that, Trancho. So, Timo, we haven't heard from you yet. This has been a very interesting conversation. The spice continues to rise. So what are your thoughts on what has been said?
Yes, I bring up one point. I think everybody saw the presentations. And do you know what the difference between the presentation of HT, Bob, myself, and you guys were? On our presentations, there were a lot of Bitcoin logos, and on your presentations, were a lot of charts and dollar signs and everything. And that's, I think, the main difference. We are here for Bitcoin, really for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin doesn't need, no personal attack, I like you guys. Yeah.
It's super personal.
Bitcoin doesn't need
Fight.
big mining companies. It doesn't need it. We can split up all mining companies, give everybody home a miner, and everybody puts a miner in his home, and it's running, and Bitcoin will run. Bitcoin doesn't need big companies, and we're getting to a point where, for example, you are very proud that you have you locked in your option and your deal. That's you can be proud of that. But what that means is that the small miners have higher prices in the end for their ASICs. That means the small miners, they get pushed out of the market, and it's the bigger the companies like yours, they get bigger, like you showed in your charts, like double, triple, whatever, and people underestimate how small your operation, my operation, your operation is compared to your operation or your operation.
Yeah, man, I got 40 megawatts out there right now.
Yeah, but 40 megawatts, that's a lot, right?
So Timo, one of the things that you mentioned in your presentation, and I want to ask Ben and then Taylor, you said one of the positive things that you meant and that you had in your slide was no loans, no banks, no greedy investors. Ben, what would your response to that be?
We have loans, we have greedy investors, and they make a shitload of money. So, argue with that. Seriously, argue with that. Our investors are not here because they expect Bitcoin price to go down. They're not there for that. If you expect Bitcoin price is going to be at 25,000 next year and you're buying Bitcoin miners now, you don't have a single cell in your brain. That is not why you buy a Bitcoin miner. Bitcoin miners function as a very inefficient options market. Investors are saying, what's the probability of Bitcoin hitting 50K by end of Q1 2024? Or end of Q2? Or end of Q4? What is Bitcoin, or what is Bitfarms or CleanSpark or Marathon going to be worth in that situation? What is the probability that they're going to deliver? We are functioning as a very, very inefficient options market. But, we're, as Bob said, it's very immature. We're developing, we're advancing, we're progressing. But this is early days. This industry did not exist 15 years ago. It didn't exist. And now we've got 30 different public companies who are working with investment banks, and they're out there lobbying in DC. And, it's not a very fun thing to be lobbying in DC. But to be honest, if we don't do it, none of you guys are. And you need to have somebody in front of them, because these people have zero clue what they're doing or what they're talking about. And if it wasn't for the public corporate interests out there spending money to protect our own interests through lobbying, you guys wouldn't have it. It's the reality. This is a necessary function of maturing industries, is to corporatize, to securitize, and become public. And so we fill a natural role, but it doesn't mean that we're out there squeezing Hodl Tarantula or Barefoot Bob. You guys are still going to run your facilities, right?
So
yeah,
Bob
and
then
I
Taylor.
think that the hard part, I'll come back to this, is when you get pushed from the outside toward behaviors that go against the ethos. And you may not be there now. It may never happen to Bitfarms, but it definitely is happening in other places. And the odds are eventually you will get that pressure. Again, I can say that going back from my days as a C-suite exec in a Fortune 200 company, that pressure gets immense. And I'll tell you, the thing that really is difficult, Timo hit it, I'm not being critical of you have the right to go, for instance, buy your S21s, and that's fine. But what happened in the last cycle, and part of my criticism of Core Scientific specifically, is that they went out and raised $1 billion quickly and went out and spent it on machines and essentially locked guys like us out of buying the latest technology at a point when we actually had access to capital. We couldn't get the machines. And so I think there are, now, part of that is behavior, by the way, at Bitmain and MicroBT, and us not having enough choices in that market. We can solve some of those problems by having more choices at both the chip level and the systems level. But elephants or big public companies have inherent pressure to grow. And like, I have a belief that the best time to expand is in the bear, which I think we're at the end of a cycle, and the best time to hold tight is in the middle of the bull run. And that most likely will be the strategy we have. I mean, we'll see what happens and what opportunities present it for Barefoot. But that's kind of the way I look at it, and I think that's really hard, for instance, in a public company to succumb to that, because when the bull run is happening, those shareholders are going to say, why aren't you growing? Why aren't you being more aggressive? So I'll let somebody else speak.
Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I also think we need to get away from this like weird complex. Like, it's not good to make money if you're making it with Bitcoin. Like, you guys all need jobs. Like, if we want to work in Bitcoin, like, you need to be able to pay your bills. You need to be able to have insurance. You need to be able to do all these things. So I don't think it should be looked at apart like it's negative that Ben and I are trying to run a profitable business while mining Bitcoin, right? The blunt truth of it is that these publicly traded miners are going to have much larger reach than any of the private miners. We're going to do more for Bitcoin education, adoption, awareness, etc., than any private miner ever will, period. And I know that's a blunt, really hard concept to like put into this room right now, but we have millions of shareholders, millions of people that are looking and adopting Bitcoin because of publicly traded mining companies, period.
We have a fiduciary responsibility to be profit maximalists. Like, we actually do have that fiduciary responsibility. Our job as executives in public companies is to drive returns to shareholders. Our goal is to make money, right? And you know, there's lots of different things that you can approach with this space, but our goal is profit maximalism. And you know, like, just one last thing, like, don't hate the player, like, hate the game. If you don't like economy of scale, like, sorry, like, that's a basic function of, you know, economics and markets. Like, you know, the bigger you buy, the cheaper you get. Like, this is true for bread. It's true for oil. It's true for any commodity.
Can I just comment on something Taylor said? And I want to see if any of you guys want to comment to that. You just referred to shareholders of a company as Bitcoin adopters. Anybody want to challenge that statement?
Not your keys, not your coins.
Well, I mean, when I work with investors, and I work with a lot of investors, they're private. In fact, I met with one, might even be in the room right now, yesterday for a new site that I'm bringing up. But one of the things I told him was, I said, you know, he was kind of interviewing me and looking at the business proposal, but I told him bluntly, I'm interviewing him too, because I'm going to run the company within the ethos of Bitcoin, and I want him to understand what that means. And in this case, he agreed. When you're dealing with public shareholders who are driven by profit, fiat mentalities, they're generally short-sighted. They're looking at financial return. They may even be just trading that stock. Whole different set of mentalities come in. And as Ben said, you know, it's not illegal. I don't think it's immoral or unethical. It's just a different choice. When you become a public company, you become a profit maximalist. And I think you find yourself at times at odds with what's best for Bitcoin versus what's best for your company. And when you become a public company, well, you've made your choice. You're beholden to that profit maximalism, not the Bitcoin maximalism.
So to pass it back to Taylor, because you said something really interesting, right? Which is the idea, you're pursuing profit, you're creating jobs. Isn't that exactly what the Chinese miners were doing before the China ban happened? Like, it didn't stop the Chinese government from stepping in saying, no, we can't have this because we want CBDCs for our population, no freedom for you guys. And if you've seen the political situation in the United States the last 2 or 3 years, you could say that it's heading towards a more totalitarian type of situation. So does that concern you? Does that worry you at all?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, let's put my Clean Spark employee hat on. Does that worry me? Sure, right? But let's talk about one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin. China banned the Bitcoin mine, and it all came to Texas within, what, a year? It's one of the beautiful things. We can move, right?
Exactly,
We can go create jobs in a new country and build new infrastructure and do all of these things. I mean, does it concern me as an employee? Yes, but for the Bitcoin network, no. U.S. wants to ban it, we'll do the same thing when China banned it, which is move the equipment.
I'll mine for you guys on sovereign land. It's cool.
Like honestly, like what Tarantula said, like, and he said it like as a joke, like that's true, right? That is the last line of defense. And I'm going to bring that back to Bob. Bob, you talked about this in a recent podcast about this potential attack, right? And if there's large captured elephants and they are the vast majority of the network, all it takes for governments to shut them down like this, hash rate drops and the blocks aren't getting mined. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple things. First is, again, I'll go back to this long-term lens. So it's true when the China mining ban happened, the community and the network responded beautifully, and a whole bunch of hash came here to the U.S. A whole bunch of it went, especially, for instance, to Texas. I'll tell some of my fellow Texas mining brothers, you know, one of the things that I think they take for granted, maybe they have some false sense of security, is that they view Texas as this bastion of sovereignty. And they say, well, they're only a handful of votes from Beto O'Rourke being the governor of that state. We're only a handful of votes from AOC being the president. We're only a handful of votes from Elizabeth Warren being the vice president. And you can see very rapid changes in policy, regulation, taxation in short periods. So part of what worries me about any elephant site is that it's very difficult to move. It's very difficult to react. So if you put up a 200 megawatt facility somewhere in West Texas and then boom, this happens, it's not like you're going to move that in a couple weeks to some other place. HT, I'm pretty sure, can take one of his sites and redeploy in a different place as conditions change.
3 days.
There you go. Now, obviously, doing that at scale, we have almost a 500 exahash network now. That's not going to happen everywhere, but we need a material amount of it capable of doing that. And you know, Barefoot could do that. I think HT could do that. I think maybe Timo can do that. Now, the situation that you talked about, in the interest of time, I won't go too deep, but I wrote an article called Satoshi's Heel a few years ago, and it envisions a scenario far in the future where the world has 99% of its hash rate in, let's say, a very small handful of captive elephant sites, and then a coordinated attack on those sites, because they're all permissioned energy, forces them all off at the same time at the point of a difficulty adjustment. And what does that do? It leads to the possibility of maybe 3 to 4 years for a difficulty adjustment to occur, and then a whole handful of events that ripple off from that. So not a 51% attack, but really a disruption of service, almost a denial of service attack kind of thing on the network. And so that could be completely prevented, though. It's partly why I'm here. It's partly why I'm up, is I realize captive elephants are going to be there. I'm happy to share the stage with captive elephants. But we have to have a robust and fertile group of rabbits and horses. Otherwise, if the attack comes, and again, the captive elephants, which, as I said, think about a 1,000-year history, it will come, I promise you. We're battling for the power and wealth structure of the entire world. Don't expect that somebody's not going to come after us.
Okay, so I'm going to take the opposite side now. I'm going to side with Ben and Taylor and then phrase this question to you, gentlemen. The horses and the rabbits. So that's Swan. Also, Peter McCormack's podcast. Some of our biggest sponsors are mining companies. Specifically for Swan, it was Marathon. It's one of the largest sponsor. That enabled them to throw the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. Peter McCormack's largest sponsor, I think right now, is Iris Energy, and enables him to continue to improve the production quality of his podcast, therefore continue to spread the orange gospel. So that is undeniable. And also as a content creator myself, you know, miners have a lot of money. You said it best. Ben said it best, right? So it's undeniable that it does help. It does help, especially the people that are in the front lines trying to convince people that it's not left versus right, it's not liberal versus conservative, it's the party of green versus the party of orange. And they're trying to spread that message, and I think the public miners have funded that in a way, and I haven't really seen that from the smaller miners. So, Timo, do you have a response to that? And then we'll pass it on to Bob and Tarantula.
Yeah, sure. Like, first of all, let's say like this. The big companies, like yours, they aren't bad companies. They're good companies. They're good companies, and you should buy their stocks. But the problem is they get too big over time. That's like the problem. That is it. It's not that they bad actors or something. They get bigger, and because of the scaling effects, others get pushed out of the market. That means miners right now need cheaper electricity than they needed like 5 years ago, and that happens, and it goes down, the price that everybody else has to pay, because you push up the difficulty. So for us, it's or for everybody, it's, let's say, per terahash, less profitable if the Bitcoin price does not rise. And that's the problem. It's not that they are bad actors, because they are not bad actors. They just have the problem that they get too big. And for example, in that conference, the Unconfiscatable conference, is a great conference. It's not huge, but like we as a small company, we also sponsored the conference. That means, of course, yeah, miners have money, and the big miners more than the small miners. But that's okay. It's nothing bad.
Bob?
I mean, it's clearly undeniable that there are bigger pockets of money, and I think there's some very good that comes from organizations like these, sponsoring events, sponsoring content, sponsoring lobby groups. We do all that, but obviously at a much smaller scale. We have less money. So I think that's a positive side effect. I believe in the grand scheme of evaluating what's good and what's not as good, it's a pretty minor issue. That I'll come back to, you know, the bit. What are you doing? What is the best for the Bitcoin in the long run? And so if a company, I mean, I'll because I've already called them out, Core Scientific was sponsoring left and right, and they were still a net very negative to the industry. So, you know, those are, it's nice, but it's like the, I'm not saying you guys, by the way, but it's kind of like the mafia donating money to the Christmas fund. I mean, it's a positive thing, but it, you know, is it the right, is it coming from the right people?
Gotcha. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball, because we've been talking about public miners, talking about private miners, but there's also something else coming in, which is nation-state miners. I'm going to read you a quote from Forbes. The Himalayan kingdom quietly spent millions building its own Bitcoin mining operation, and I'm talking about the kingdom of Bhutan. So, Ben, do you see more nation-states directly mining Bitcoin over the next couple of years, especially nation-states that have an excess amount of energy capability, capacity?
The incentives demand it. It's absolutely required. And the smaller the nation, the more they are incentivized to do so. I personally think it's the dollarized nations that have the most incentive to switch over. These are countries who have given up complete control over monetary policy, have ceded it completely to the United States. There's 30, 40 countries like this around the world. These countries knew that if they ran their own central bank, it would be corrupt and printed to nothing. And so they were like, oh, we'll trust the U.S. Well, the U.S. did the same thing. These countries have had a much harder ability to develop. what Bitcoin mining is at its core, and again, this is why I go back to profit maximalism over and over and over again. Bitcoin mining is an economic incentive to monetize low-cost energy. That's what it is from a business perspective. That's what we are doing. And if you are trying to compete on high-cost electricity, you're screwed. You know, unfortunately, I see like home miners. I saw on Twitter yesterday, somebody is walking around traveling with an S9 through TSA security so they can mine in their hotel room. Who is that? Is that you, Huddle Tarantula? You know,
I started that movement in 2018.
it's so, you know, like, power to you if you want to do that. But
Wait, hold on a second, because there's something trippy happened. You were pointing to Tatum while you were talking to Tarantula.
I got
I
confused
think
with
there's
the T's.
something there between two ASICs.
Between two tarantulas, maybe. You know, like if you're spending $100 plus for a good night's rest, and then you're plugging in a miner that's effectively a massive heater and noise generator, and it's generating you $1 in revenue, but you're not paying for the electricity, did you really profit? Like, you had to carry that shit through security. It's like, it weighs a ton. You've got to have this heater. Like, you know, like, for me, the math doesn't make sense.
It's a net positive on sat still.
So for Huddle Tarantula, by all means, you carry the S9 around. I'm going to leave it at home. You know, like, it's a different perspective. Like, I don't think that the network is more secured by people mining Bitcoin at a loss. Like, that is not a good thing for the network.
I
it's
didn't pay for
unsustainable.
the electricity at the hotel room.
Well, you have other costs. You paid for the hotel room. You paid
Actually,
for the
I
flight.
didn't.
You carried it around.
I didn't pay for my hotel room.
Well, then you made a buck. Congratulations.
Hey, brother.
Was it worth the
Some
deduction
figure
in
out
your sleep
ways.
quality?
Some figure out ways to stack more sats than others. You know?
So Huddle, does that mean that you're a profit maximalism instead of a sleep maximalism?
I'm an opportunity maximalist.
Okay. Whew, okay, all right. So we're going to open it up to questions. Before, I do want to give an
Can I add
opportunity.
one thing?
Go ahead.
You acquire as many sats as you want, but if they're not worth anything because there's no adoption, was it meaningful to acquire those sats?
Toad, could we extend this for like 45 minutes? Okay. And I'm going to pass it on to you, but
Adoption is going to happen over time no matter what. And so your question is irrelevant.
okay, all right. So we're going to open up to questions. Timo, same question to you. Do you see more nation states, especially your company, right? You're based in Germany, but you're mining all over the world. Do you see more nation states themselves mining Bitcoin?
Yes, of course. Of course, we see that. At the beginning, maybe not that the state itself or a country itself mines, but they create an environment for Bitcoin mining companies to come and to mine Bitcoin there. So they get an exposure to Bitcoin mining through taxes or other things. And we saw that, for example, in Georgia. We started our company where they built free industrial zones. Where you could mine Bitcoin tax-free, and this was like targeted for Bitcoin miners. So maybe not directly, they don't put up miners themselves, but they help other companies come and mine, and so get exposures that way.
I just want to say something real quick. There may seem like out there in the field there's a lot of animosity amongst miners when it comes to large miners, medium-sized and smaller, but we are the only industry out there that's willing to help each other until it literally kills us in order to be successful, while at the same time creating more competition for ourselves. It's
well said.
It's a brotherhood that is very strong, and no matter what happens, we got each other all day long.
All my best friends mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, like to add to that public versus private, I think we all need each other, right? We've all made really good arguments for why we need mining to be decentralized through the homes, why public miners are good, why private miners are good. I think we all at this point, to go back to Bob's point, we're really young. We all need to work together to help grow the industry and push it in the most positive direction we can.
All right, this has been an absolutely awesome panel. We're starting to, we had a couple of these debates, and when you have all Bitcoin maxis on the stage debating a topic, it tends to be a really, really good discussion. We may be doing more of those in the future. All right, so I have a question. I know D++ has a question, and then we do have a miner that travels and mines in hotel rooms, and he was going to comment on something.
Let's go over the math.
Yeah. So my question is also in regards to Ocean Mining Pool with Mechanic. Ian's right there. Luke is lurking around here somewhere. So I was at the launch of Ocean's Mining Pool. Tarantula was there. Timo was there. Bob was there. You guys are already mining on those pools. And it seems like it's the horses and the rabbits that have an interest in a mining pool like that, while the bigger miners will be very reluctant to take that risk. So any comment on that from both sides?
Well, I'll start, and full disclosure, I'm an investor in Ocean and on the board as well, so clearly biased. My support for Ocean starts first and foremost with its mission to move block template creation back to the miner. To date, I am a hasher. Everybody at this table is a hasher. We're not a miner. We will not be miners until we start creating our own block templates. And we didn't talk about this much on the panel, but I think that's a very, very important part of what we do. It's not so much economic, but it's a control mechanism. And I think it's imperative to the health of the network that we have hundreds and thousands of different block template creators. So for me, it's another example of doing what's best for Bitcoin, not what's necessarily best for me in the short term. That said, I believe that in the future, all miners are going to find that creating their own block templates is a massive financial opportunity, and also that the common payout methods that of all the other pools of FPPS are fundamentally flawed. A block template, I'm sorry. So the mempools out there, there's 250,000 transactions waiting to get processed or included in a block. Each pool today, at the point a new block must be created, can select from those 250,000 any transactions they wish in the next block, but they're restricted by, I'll simplify, size limits, and they can only fit like 3,000 of them in there. So what 3,000 are they going to pick? Well, they're not necessarily. Each pool can pick whichever one they want. Now, we're going to move with Ocean. We will move in the next few months so that the miner will create the block template. So instead of only 12 companies in the world deciding what's going into blocks, we theoretically can have thousands. And then censorship becomes impossible.
It's a pretty astute question from Tone because it touches on a lot of the things that we talked about today, but this is a white elephant situation or a captured elephant situation. This is a regulatory deal. Like, me as a large publicly traded miner, I cannot go and use Binance Pool very easily. I cannot go and use Ant Pool very easily. Like, is it possible? Yes. Is it a pain? Absolutely. Is it worth the effort? No.
What about Kano Pool? Could you guys mine Kano Pool?
I never even heard of that pool.
It's a old school, long running, Bitcoin only mining pool. They run their own pool node and everything.
We can technically run any pool we want. It's about how much effort we want to go through with the auditors in order to be compliant and to get everything done.
So compliance is what drives your pool selection.
We have two things from the pool. One, profit maximalism. I want low fees and I want no volatility on my revenue. When Ether and Ether Classic forked, I was there with my own Ether Classic pool in mainland China with about 4.5% of the Ether Classic network. My volatility went up or down 40% every single day with 4%. As a publicly traded miner with shareholders, I cannot stand that volatility. It's not acceptable, right? I need to pass that on to a pool who stabilizes that revenue. And what Foundry does is for 10 basis points, they guarantee that my revenue is consistent every single day. For 10 basis points. I can't do that myself. It's a very, very low cost to do that. So first thing, profit maximalism always. But the second thing, there is a time cost and an opportunity cost when it comes to regulatory. And it's very, very difficult as a public miner to use any mining pool you want. The reason why we use Foundry, again, profit. Secondly, because they're SOC compliant, and it's like a really, it's something that if you're a private person, you're probably like, what the hell is a SOC? But this is a regulatory issue that public companies have to deal with, and Foundry is large enough that they can pay for it. Luxor is also going through SOX compliance so that they can get that market, but it is a real difficult challenge to get that through the auditors. We weren't even allowed to hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet, right? We had to change auditors so that we can hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet. No, I'm serious.
Oh, Tarantra, always speak into the mic because the live stream will not hear what you say.
Are you guys Bitcoin miners? You
We
can't
are.
hold it on your balance sheet at first?
We hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet, but when we started, like we were using Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young's not comfortable with Bitcoin on a balance sheet or accounting policies. So for years, we weren't allowed to hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet. We literally had to change auditors in order to be able to hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet. Do you think we can hold it in a non-custodial wallet? Who thinks we can hold Bitcoin in a non-custodial wallet? No way. No way. So there are captured elephant issues which are in conflict for sure. This is something that we have to navigate with.
I want to go back to the question about the ocean pool because people don't understand how bad the current pool environment is. Everybody who mines Bitcoin actually doesn't really know what he's mining. All the pools are custodial. We don't know what we're actually mining. It's after we find the block, we know what it is. And Ocean changes that, and that's very good, especially the non-custodial part of it. If Ocean finds the block, I get paid. Right? Nobody holds it. I don't have to give my ID or whatever, or an auditor, or to approve something. I just get it. And this needs to be changed. And Ocean does hopefully a great job doing this to change this crazy environment that we can, like that we don't actually know what we're doing.
I agree.
I want in the future. I want to. It's my node, my rules. It's my miners, my block template. I want to pick the transactions I think are good for Bitcoin. I want to pick, for example, 90% highest fees. Let's say in a high fee environment, 9% Lightning channel opens and closes, and 1% I don't know, the oldest transaction that got stuck somewhere. So I want to choose what I want to mine, and not some Chinese entity I don't know.
All right, guys, we have a couple of more questions. Quick
I
comment.
was just going to say, this is exactly 100% correct. If you mine Bitcoin with Foundry, you might as well make a gamble or a bet that you're mining Bitcoin with a pool like Foundry, because you can't see what's actually happening with your hash rate on the back end. They could be renting it out to a shitcoiner on the other side, and you will not know. And so what you're doing is you're sacrificing the fundamentals, principles, and morals of why you're doing something for profit in the long term versus actually being willing to take a gamble and a risk to do something you actually believe in.
Question. How many block templates have you guys looked at before mining?
This wasn't something that was available to us unless running a pool node yourself and doing the work on the back end.
But now we can with Ocean.
From my perspective, and I'll let Taylor jump in here, like, you know, honestly, I'm not trying to look in the block template. I don't care what you guys are sending in transactions. Send whatever the hell you want to send in transactions. You put in a transaction fee, and the transaction fee is competitive, it'll be on the block.
Yeah, that's your rule.
Yeah, I don't want to look at your transactions.
But
just the same way I don't want to look at your bank account.
But you can choose. If I go with Ocean, I can in the future choose.
It's your choice.
Yeah. Correct.
All right, we do have a couple more questions. Hey guys, we can go a little bit longer at the expense of several volunteers helping us break down this room faster. So just keep in mind, okay? All right, Dee, you had a question.
I did. It might be a little off topic though at this point, but somebody did make mention of the Kardashev scale. I believe that may have been Bob. Yeah, you mentioned when we reached Kardashev 1 in approximately 1,000 years that we won't be using Bitcoin. And I was really curious, my naive assumption is that you can still mine Bitcoin, let's say energy was free. We'd still have the CapEx and OpEx, and you would still have to invest that into mining, and you could still make money mining. So can you maybe further explain where you're coming from?
Well, I think that
marginal cost of production, this is a Jeff Booth talks about this a lot, you know, that Bitcoin will gravitate to the marginal cost of production. And the marginal cost of production when energy is free and instantly available will start approaching zero. So that's where I get that from. That's just my opinion, by the way. Somebody may disagree with that, and that's certainly fine. But I'm not worried about that, by the way. Obviously, that's 1,000 years away. And I think that the way I look at it is that's somewhat of a utopian state, right? If we have free and available energy to everybody, that's a wonderful place. Until we get there, we have Bitcoin.
That ends in 2143.
Yeah, so you'd be getting
Give or take.
transaction fees. So we could get real spicy and start talking about ordinals right now, but
Or
it
the
might be
security budget.
No, I understand how the issuance works. What I'm saying is you're mentioning the marginal cost of production, and what I'm saying is in 1,000 years there will be no production of Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, I would say this, that we'll most likely find if energy is free, that we'll approach the cost of silicon production will be close to free, and the cost of almost all those other things will approach zero as well.
All right, we got 2 more questions. Still want to ask?
So maybe not exactly a question, but I agree with you, Tarantula. I actually do travel with an S9. I travel for work, so my employer pays the hotel bill, and you just mind when you're not there, shut it off when you get back. I bought several miners out the road. I'm heating 2 houses, and I plan to onboard more of my family to put an S19 in their basement. It's not that hard to do, and it's actually kind of fun. And I feel like I'm doing my part for the network, and I stacked 4 million Bitcoin last winter, and I plan to do about
4
6
million
million
Bitcoin?
this sats. But hey, man, I love refreshing that app.
I was going to say, we
Yeah,
have
what
a
kind
real
of firmware
profit
are
next
you
next
running?
year.
50,000 sats a day heating my house. It feels great, honestly, and I do it for that, and I believe in the network, so that's off.
All right, we got a question over here.
So this question's for the public miners. What are your thoughts on the potential consolidation of ownership? And what I mean is, say BlackRock and a few others come in, each own 10%. It's a possibility. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if you look at BlackRock specifically and in public miners, they already own more than 10% of some public miners. That's a reality today, and it's been a reality since 2021. Same thing with Vanguard. Vanguard and BlackRock hold large stakes in Marathon, Riot, I think CleanSpark, and Hut 8 as well. Not us, but a lot of the miners. Like the reality is that like, they invest in everything in the world. Like there's not a single thing that BlackRock isn't invested in. So I don't really think of that as a systemic risk just because they have some exposure to it. I think it's a positive that institutional capital is starting to flow in here because we will not hit $250,000 million Bitcoin without institutional capital. It's not possible. So for us to keep this train going, for us to be able to keep driving adoption, we do need that institutional money to come in to some extent. And there was a rumor recently about like BlackRock and other ETFs buying Bitcoin directly from miners in order to not pump the price. That's really stupid. Like, BlackRock, like there's roughly 900 Bitcoins mined every single day. BlackRock will consume that in a second. Like they're going to go directly to an OTC desk. They're not into miners in order to take control of the network or to get access to a bunch of Bitcoin for their ETF. They're viewing investment into miners just like they're viewing investments into Pepsi and McDonald's and whatever else the hell that they're invested in, because they literally invest in everything on the planet.
Yeah, and just to add to that, they could acquire every single public miner and still not be more than, 10, 15% of the total network hash rate. So it's not really a risk in my mind.
I don't think they'll ever buy HODL Tarantula.
Well,
He'll never sell. He's never selling.
I'm unhirable by the corporate interest, just FYI.
I will say that I believe the day will come when they come after and start purchasing miners, public or private.
I thought you were going to say, come after me.
Well, no. But I'll come back to this block template thing. They are going to want to control block templates. Okay, and so the day will come when they will start looking to buy hash rate and then start controlling block templates. I cannot emphasize enough the power that comes from controlling the block template. There will only be 200 million transactions a year going forward. That's it. There's very little change in the capacity of the network. And the world will soon understand that that block space is a commodity, and it is the most precious commodity in the world. It actually will become even more precious than Bitcoin itself.
Actually, real quick, Bob did a presentation about that at BitBlock Boom. If anybody is interested in learning more about what he's referring to, if it's available, I think Gary Leland took a video of it. What he's talking about is very real, and it is going to be the thing that subsidizes miners after 2140. Production of Bitcoin is actually no longer. So
I think starting even in the next handful of years, it will be the primary source of income for all of us.
By the way, if you guys want to see that presentation, you can check out the Bitcoin Magazine channel on YouTube. They have the entire live stream. I just want to say this. Even though there are differences here, all these gentlemen on stage have contributed not only their intellectual might, but their hash rate to securing your Bitcoin. So please, everyone, give them a round of applause. Even though there's differences are good. Discussions are good. It makes Bitcoin stronger, and I think that's a good thing. So ladies and gentlemen, Ben Gagnon, Bob Burnett, Timo Stipik, Taylor, and Hodl Tarantula.
Thank you, Tone.
And in honor of the debate, gentlemen, please shake hands. Please give each other a hug.
And also, please sign our official painting reprint if you have not signed it yet as a speaker. It's for speakers. Hey guys, don't go away. We got one last thing for you. But this was an absolutely awesome panel. So as a tradition at this event, any speakers, anyone that was a speaker during the 2 days, please come up on the stage. And we're just going to get all the speakers up here. You guys can take pictures. And also, we will do a Q&A. We're going to take about 30 minutes for Q&A with all the speakers. Now, not everyone is going to answer your question. You can direct the question at a specific person. And then other people can additionally comment beyond that. We're not going to have enough seats for everyone. How many chairs did we buy? Jesus. All right. Still trying to figure out how that happened. Whoa. And some people will be standing. And then this is going to be our last panel. And we're going to have Erica Gemma, who just landed about an hour ago due to crazy delays and flight cancellations because of all the Vegas insanity. And she was going to moderate a different panel, but she will just run this. So if you're a speaker, please come up to the stage, grab a seat or stand, and we'll pass the mics around.
Calling all speakers to the stage. You guys, everyone's going to be up here, so please have your questions ready. We'll try to answer them as best as possible.
I just don't want to think about it right now. Yeah, you were speaking. Hi. Oh, hi.
You want to do this?
I'm happy to do it. I've been doing that the whole time.
Just take that one.
Just got here.
You know, we can bring Tatum up there also.
Yo, Tom, should we have the speakers form a line so I don't have to run around the room, or you want me to run around the room?
What do you mean?
To speak so that
No.
If you have a question, come
Oh,
up
yeah,
here.
just come up, form a line. Yeah.
Yeah, you can form a line over here. Yeah, if you have a question, you guys, let's form a line right here that we can make sure we'll get them all answered.
Let's do it in the middle. Guys, form a line in the middle, or middle. They gotta come. Yeah,
And
then
now
we'll
is
have
your
the mics
chance,
here.
because I bet you guys follow most of these people online on that wonderful thing called Twitter
Hey, Buzz.
/X. And now is the time to ask them in person, which is much better. You get facial expressions. You know they're not an
Hey,
AI
Tatum, do you want to come up
answering.
here? Don't forget yellow.
Cool. Any other speakers coming up? All right, let's get started. So you guys.
Yeah, we have speakers and Tatum.
So as the last panel of the day, you guys, let's just give a big round of applause to Tone. So this is the 5th year of Unconfiscatable and the 4th actual event. And I just want to encourage people, you know, it is important, even though this is a decentralized movement, and it's actually more important because this is a decentralized movement, to host events in your local area. And so Tone bringing people together every single year is really important because we need to be able to meet people face to face and have collaboration. So wherever you are in the world, for me it's Miami, and I've been hosting events in Miami since before it became cool, right? Just like probably everybody in this room was interested in Bitcoin, hosting meetups, just bringing a few people together before it was cool. And it's important to keep that going because I think a lot of the new voices that are coming in, they need our guidance. So don't shy away from that, especially now in these times. So,
unless you have a question first to start us.
Oh, yeah, sure. Actually, I do have a question that we can get started with. The last conversation was about mining pools. And you guys were talking about rabbits and horses and these smaller players that are in the system. If somebody wanted to become a smaller miner, just hobby mine, what's the cost they would be looking at?
I mean,
Anyone?
you could do it for like $25 in an S9. And if you're going to get started, I recommend buying an S9. There's infinite amounts of YouTube and online resources. It's super cheap. You can learn everything. Do not go out there and buy the most expensive miner you can buy when you're just getting started. That is the biggest mistake you can make.
$25 S9, plug it into your hotel room, or if you get free energy at your office, I didn't say do it.
Is DM Huddle Tarantula on Twitter, and you'd be good to go.
Yeah, oh, for the speakers, we have 3 mics on stage, so just like raise your hand and we'll pass you the mic down.
And then just another question that I had on the mining, do you have any bias on mining pools that people should point their miners at?
Yes. Aside from the bias on stage here, I will say that point your hash rate at the smallest pool you can find and try to decentralize it as best you can.
All right.
I know we have more questions, guys, so line it up. I'm going to let you ask, and then I have some.
Yup.
For the legal guys, I had a
little... Closer.
Sorry. I had a little Bitcoin left in FTX US. I know. And what's going to happen? I'm just curious. Like, will I ever see it? Should I give up or what?
Churchill said never give up. Never, never, never give up, right? And so, look, I'm not a bankruptcy expert, but you're technically a creditor. But my grandmother used to say when I was a kid to wish in one hand and shit in the other and tell me which one fills up faster, right? So don't give up. By the time they finish that transaction, by the time they finish that trade, it may be worth even more. So just hang tight, hold tight. Mt. Gox is 10 years in. It's still not paid out. But there's a line of sight, right? There's a line of sight. So be patient. And by the time you get your sats, they'll be worth something. So hang on.
I've been saying for years the Mt. Gox. I think they're just waiting for everyone to die of old age before they have to pay them out.
There is a solution to this, and it's sitting right here on the stage. And you need to look at the history of how the futures exchange is developed. And it is a method of passing off risk. And everyone that's in the Bitcoin mining industry, I don't care if you're a large corporation or if you're operating in a sovereign capacity, that is why the futures markets developed. These guys on this on this stage are the ones that need to develop that. And I hope they understand it.
All right, there's got to be somebody else with a question. We have every speaker on stage at the same time. Don't be shy, guys.
Well, I have another question then. There's this thing that's being talked about on the internet. I haven't had a chance to look into it, but the Freedom Visa in El Salvador. Anybody know or knowledgeable about that?
I know something. Maybe somebody has more up-to-date information. I know some some rumors from the backstage. So apparently, is a way to give And it's not just like St. Kitts and Nevis citizenship where everybody can just purchase like an open market, let's say. It's more like a specific deal with 100 very, very committed investors that will invest not just this 1 million, which is mostly symbolical, but mostly it will be an investment of a lot of money in the future of the country. They will get this symbolic citizenship back, which is also an actual passport. And the idea is that all the money that will enter from 100 people, 1 million each, will go in a Bitcoin fund kept in Bitcoin. So by the time the few next cycles will be over, probably El Salvador will have enough money to pay off the entire debt and probably also build spaceships and stuff.
I'd like to comment on this too. I'm not going to dox the other person on stage, but I know there's two, including myself, there's two people up here who've done citizenship by investment at least. Could be more. $1 million for citizenship is really expensive. You can get a U.S. citizenship for $1 million. I mean, you also get the U.S. tax burden with it, but you can get a U.S. citizenship for $1 million. So, you can go to other countries, Dominica. I have a passport from St. Lucia. It cost me $183,000 for my wife and I and all legal fees, $183 versus $1 million. And it gives me visa-free travel to 156 countries, including the EU, which even the United States does not have anymore. So there are very cost-effective options, and plenty of options for citizenship by investment. Don't just be focused on the most expensive one.
Yeah, if you guys have questions about citizenship by investment, that's totally my wheelhouse, so please come ask me. I actually have a funny story about El Salvador. Myself and Andy, who's sitting right there, went to El Salvador. We were invited by the government and blah, blah, blah. I don't know, who here has done their Mecca trip to El Salvador? Good job, you guys. You got to go. You got to check it out. And we pitched them a citizenship by investment program because I understand that world. And they pretty much created their framework exactly the way that I told them they should. And now but then they didn't give me any credit. But me and Andy are still working on it, so it's okay. I know, as they should. Yeah, welcome to El Salvador, right? But I do think that, especially in this space, especially in this current environment, politically, financially, it's important for people to have backups, right? Bitcoin is obviously a backup, but you need to protect your personal sovereignty as well. And secondary passports are ways to do that. I mean, there's ways, especially if you guys have heritages from other countries, where you can easily get a passport for pretty much free, depending on where your parents are from. And so just look into that, right? There's citizenship by investment, but there's also citizenship by heritage, or descent is a technical word. So I would definitely look into getting some other options for yourself. Paraguay's 10,000, guys. Uruguay's 10K.
For a passport? Resident. Yeah. Right. That's residency, yeah. Actually, Paraguay residency is like 2,000 or something. All right. Well, this discussion is going to... It's okay.
But me and Andy, talk to us about
actually, you guys, you feel free to come to me as well for any, moving out of the U.S. and residency and passports thing.
You've got citizens of the world around here.
Some of us have done extensive research and have experience with this stuff.
All right, Emmy, you are up next.
Oh, wait. One quick thing, guys. So for everyone in the room, we have decided to do this conference again.
Yay.
It's always a 50-50 shot.
Buy your tickets now.
You can register already. This will be the lowest price to get because it will go up. The site should be up. It'll probably be in December around the same time. It sucks that we're competing with the rodeo.
And our puzzle.
Yeah, it's kind of insane here. But we still have a date TBD. It will very likely be December again of next year because I don't really want to skip a year. Kind of stuck in December until we, and I don't want to conflict with other events as well. And I want to thank the organizers. I want to thank the staff. Anyone with the yellow shirt. I also want to thank Muzz, who organized this event the first 3 years, sitting on stage, got us rolling, and yeah. So I hope everyone had a great time. And now we have a few more questions. I wanted to get that out there before I forget, and then say everyone's off the stage and everyone runs out. So yeah, please go to the website. You guys know what the website is, and sign up for next year. It will help us out a lot. in order to pay the deposit and be more comfortable financially putting this event on again. And if there's anyone here that is interested in sponsoring, that is critical. And I think of all the Bitcoin events, this is generally the least sponsor-focused event. So we can certainly use a couple of more. But we're very selective. It needs to be a Bitcoin company. So if a company has another token, they will not be accepted no matter how much they're willing to pay to sponsor.
So no Alex Mashinsky?
No Alice Mashinsky.
No Sam? Just kidding. Go ahead, sorry.
With Bitcoin being more fun with friends, what's your go-to orange pill argument?
Well, for me, it's unconfiscatable, but I'm sure others on the stage have something else to say.
Yeah, tell them to look up the Federal Reserve as a private corporation. That is the quickest way to not only orange pill, but red pill any of your libtard friends.
I think that if you just get them to, if you can convince them to dollar cost average even $5 a month, you'll find the odds of them getting orange pilled drastically increased. So all you got to do is get them skin in the game on a regular basis, and they'll see it, and they'll know what it is, and they'll research it because they see what happens. I don't care what app they use. I don't think that's the point. I think it's the matter of doing it. It doesn't matter what app you use.
I would point them to D++ and BTC Sessions. Those are two very, very good people at explaining technical concepts, and they've probably done more for adoption than any other two people that I can think of.
I like to ask them a question back, like, do you think gold is important? And if they don't think it is, then they're stupid, and I just don't ask. I just don't try to explain it after that. It's like really the basis. If they don't understand the value of gold, then they're not going to understand Bitcoin, and they don't understand why money's important in the first place.
Cool. I just want to say that I've been in every Unconfiscatable conference since the very beginning. And I don't know how Tone does it, but every conference is better than the last one. Now, I know this may not be the biggest one. It may not have the most, I don't know, the famous, excuse me, speakers, but he has put together a quality conference that is unsurpassed. And I hope you that are here can appreciate what he has done. And Tone, I love you, and my hat goes off to you. You are a Bitcoin standard bearer.
Yeah, for Tone.
Thank you, Ugly, but I obviously cannot put on the event by myself, so it's not just me. It's there is always a team.
There's always a team, but you know what? There's always a leader, and you know what? I have no problem following you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, next question.
Okay, so I've got, oh God, a quick comment and then a question. So the comment is based on the backup that you were saying about having, other residencies. That's really important. And the other thing that I think is a critical backup that is being represented right in front of me with Will is Noster. And I just like to always remind everybody that without freedom to communicate, we're not actually going to be able to even use our Bitcoin with each other in the future. So just a plug for Noster, and thanks to Will for everything you and all the other devs are doing to bring that to us. And then the question is for D++. I really enjoyed the lightning lark today, and I guess I just wondered what the roadmap, if you know how soon Bolt 12 is actually going to be on, I don't know what you even call it with lightning, I don't know if it's called mainnet or what, but usable.
So we used Bolt 12 today. So raise your hand if you used Bolt 12 today.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Bolt 12 is here. It is here on Core Lightning. It is not here on LND, which does have the largest market share of the Lightning Network protocols. So we'd love to see LND implement Bolt 12. For me, it was a peak experience to be able to pay that reusable QR code again and again and again without having to have a web server. That said, if you run Core Lightning, you can absolutely use it on mainnet. Just because the LARP was on RegTest doesn't mean that you can't use Bolt 12 on
Okay.
mainnet. That said, the user interface that we used, Clams, works just fine with mainnet as well. And it is,
Okay.
as far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's the only Bolt 12 native user interface that I've seen. Well, okay. So tell us all
yeah.
about your Bolt 12 implementation for the user.
So I actually created the technology that enables Clams to work. So it's really cool. It's really cool tech. Traditionally, the way you connect to a Lightning wallet is would say like VPN or Tor, especially if it's on your home network. But let's say you have a Lightning node that's running on, let's say that's a routable node, that's a public node that you can connect to remotely. Core Lightning has this feature called Commando, which allows you to connect to your Lightning node directly over Lightning without having to use VPN or Tor. So this enables a really awesome way to connect to your node. So I wrote a library called LNSocket, which enables some of that stuff. So definitely check it out. I have an app called LNLink as well, which is for iOS. It's similar to Clams. It's just alternative things to explore, and they all have Bolt 12 support, and Bolt 12 is a lot of fun. So yeah, check it out.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
One last question from me. What's your guys' private keys? Just kidding. Okay.
Hey guys, so let's do one more thing. Since we have all the speakers on stage, we'll just pass the mic around and take 30 seconds maybe. Just say a couple of final closing statements or whatever you want to share. We'll start with Maz and we end with Giacomo.
Can I just say one thing real quick question? Okay, we were at the Carnivory dinner last night, Tone's outstanding event. I was at the bar with D++. And we, of course, asked the bartender, do you accept Bitcoin tips, right? Which we all do, and it was a no, and we were getting them onboarded, right? Onboarding him. And it truly set in, again, how terrible it is to not have Wallet of Satoshi, right? Is how easy that is, okay? And we got him, we all still have it, right? Until you lose your phone and can't download it again. But we were there, we got him on a Strike wallet, we were all tipping him, and I guarantee you he's gonna think more about it. But just real quick, is there a consensus on a go-to simple Lightning wallet for people that are in the United States that we can actually recommend without a channel open? I figured Giacomo would know. Without a channel opening fee, and we're not writing down 24 words and scaring the hell out of the guy, you know what I mean? Like, what is the go-to now?
I think you have to distinguish people that want to be onboarded with one small tip of $1 and people that want to be onboarded with a payment of at least, let's say, $50, $60. For the second category, Phoenix works right. They will not bother you immediately to just write down the 12 words. You can wait. You will just have the alert, so nobody gets pissed because of that. And you will pay for the channel opening, but it's a proportional payment that will make sense. If you want to onboard somebody with $1, unfortunately, there is no currently. Lightning Network itself, in its current shape, cannot really allow for onboarding of $1 people because you have to open the channel. Somebody has to pay for that. So probably we will have a smoother progression from full custodianship, which sucks for many reasons, to a Lightning Network channel passing through maybe Cashew stuff, Xiaomi links. So we can have probably a progression. But right now, I would say if you need to receive something big like $50, Phoenix is right. If you want $1, I'm sorry for your loss, but there's no way.
Can I just ask, what about Blink?
And it doesn't work in the U.S.
Yeah.
So I think this is an incredible opportunity to fill this void in the market, right? To create a custodial wallet of Satoshi type wallet that's working in the U.S. and regulatorily captured, or however you say, and earn fees and provide that service.
You can start custodial and then move to non-custodial smoothly in a way that nobody will be stuck there with a lot of money. Like the problem is that if you don't have money, then it's hard to make you non-custodial, but it's also irrelevant to confiscate you because you don't have money. So when you start with no money, nobody's going to attack you. The company will not rug pull you because you're poor, and the government will not confiscate you because you're poor. When you become richer, then it's where your custodian wallet really, really, really sucks. So we need some kind of smart, automatic progression, which is a good business opportunity, I think, yes.
Jim, you have something to say?
I was curious. There's a lot of elements to the Bitcoin story, the economics, the cryptography, the politics, the finance. this conference seemed to have a lot of interest in mining, certainly because ocean is new and it's changing the narrative. I'm curious, in a broad sense, if anybody has a sense, what is the most vulnerable attack surface for Bitcoin generally?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think the only thing I can think of, because Bitcoin is pretty much bulletproof with regard to attack vectors, I think the problem is that if there's too much rehypothecation or paper Bitcoin, it doesn't really hurt Bitcoin, the protocol, but it does suppress the price.
Blink does work, by the way. It
And
does. I just got a 50-sat payment. So
The
I
most
think if
vulnerable place to have your Bitcoin is your IRA and retirement account. And this is a terrible thing that's going on in 2022, that so many solid, sound Bitcoiners have made unconfiscatable Bitcoin confiscatable.
Yeah, I actually almost second that. I have confidence in Bitcoin core code, even though it's slightly dropping down a little bit because of politics, even in the coding space. But I'm confident in how many people are running their own node, and I'm somewhat comfortable with the mining structure and with the new mining pools that are launching. But the one thing that still scares me is too much Bitcoin in custodied accounts. And the reason why that scares me is I believe that the 1933 Act, when Roosevelt confiscated the gold, why was it easy for him to do that? Because all the gold was at the banks. And over a weekend, they just told the banks that gold is ours. They never went door to door. They never arrested anyone. Like, they weren't going to come after you for your gold coins. But since 80% of the gold was at the banks, that's all they needed. So if 30-40% of all the Bitcoin is sitting at custodians in a single country, that is a problem.
And how do you get to that state? I think it's ultimately complacency. People just get lazy. You ever hear that idea that a tradition is a solution to a problem we forgot about? And when the problem comes back, when we abandon the tradition. So when you see fiat shenanigans and you see Bitcoin being used properly, great. But everyone is well aware of fiat Ponzi-nomics, right? But once you hit once you hit that threshold or that biting point where your kids have just always known Bitcoin, are they going to care about self-custody? Or are they just going to be complacent? They're just going to leave it all with third-party custodians. Why would anyone steal my money? Why would anyone make paper Bitcoin? And then you're just wide open to 6102 again, and you're back to gold 2.0.
I think that one interesting characteristic about 6102 is that even if, I think it will happen eventually because of game theory, but even if it happens, it can hurt a lot of people, especially people that are not owning their own keys, but then the system can heal. So it can be a tragedy for the price, for adoption, for reputation, for many people's pockets, but then eventually people that did keep their own keys, like people that kept gold after the confiscation, they still had gold. Gold didn't disappear after Roosevelt robbed it. So even if the US government is going to attack Bitcoin, custodial Bitcoin, that's in a way that's going to hurt a lot of people. But another way that's going to make Bitcoin stronger because the remaining people will be unconfiscatable for real. So the best antidote to custodianship is confiscation. It's basically just a way to strengthen the network. Mining is a little bit trickier, and Jim was basically going back to mining because mining, unfortunately, is something that can actually keep Bitcoin frozen for everybody, including the self-sovereign people that hold their keys. Even if you hold your keys, if a government is going to buy out 51% of the network to produce empty block and to orphan every block which is not empty, they can go on with this for months, maybe years, and even if you have your keys, you are still suffering. The good thing is that second layer solutions are going to mitigate this a lot, because if you have a lightning channel and your counterparty is not the attacking miner, then you too can go on trading with the same security model, basically, without closing the channel, of course. So second layers are not just for cheap coffee. Second layers are also helping with censorship resistance against minor takeover.
Giacomo, don't you know that personal responsibility is the new counterculture, sir?
That actually is a good point. Like the Bitcoin runs on proof of work. Bitcoin's greatest vulnerability is laziness and complacency, right? In order for this network to work, in order for it to be running right now, it required work. It required investment. It required sleepless nights from people all over the world, all these people on this stage. It requires you in the audience learning, expanding your knowledge base, practicing, utilizing it. The way that we lose is by being complacent. It's by sitting down. It's by not standing up. It's by not doing the right thing. And the greatest vulnerability is just people's laziness and inability to do the right thing. So it's really important for everybody here to be an ambassador for Bitcoin, to spread the message, to get further adoption, to explain why we're doing here is so valuable. Because you look around the world and it's just constant, lack of meritocracy across all sorts of industries and systems. Bitcoin has the most intelligent, most passionate people on the entire planet. And you will see that everywhere you go, every conference you go to, and all the friends that you meet.
Do not miss the Scammy Awards. The Bitcoin standard for bearer of 2022 is going to be announced at the Scammy Awards, and we'll be presiding over it. And I hope that the message gets through to you all. I created the Bitcoin standard bearer not as a one-time event, but for something that goes on and on and on. And there's a special award this year, and you'll see it at the Scammies.
Awesome. I think on that note, we can go ahead and wrap this up. We'll all stand up so people can take some pictures. I want some as well. Somebody can hold the painting when we all take a picture from the stage. And the pre-party for VIPs and speakers come at 7 o'clock. General admission come at 8 o'clock. There will be a little bit of food and for the VIPs and speakers. Sorry, guys, when we have one more. Oh, same place as poker. The after party is the same place as the pre-party, the place on 7th. So come there. Hopefully next year we'll have the budget to feed and get everybody drunk. But unfortunately, we are not there yet. Talk to the people in the yellow shirts.
All right, and if you guys are going to help clean up, because we love personal accountability, please talk to the people in the yellow shirts. Help us wrap up this room really quickly for the hotel.
Yeah, talk to people in the yellow shirts if you want to help, break down the room. All right, guys, let's do some pictures.
Everybody, line up for pictures. Come on.
We have to be closer.
Get organized. You're a bunch of adults up there. Let's do it.
I know.
Just look at the sign in the back where it says Unconfiscatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing. Oh, they took it back.
Everyone look at her. Everyone look at Daisy.
Yes, everyone look at Daisy. Oh, by the way, Daisy helps organize the financial summit. Anyone that wants to know about the financial summit, maybe we'll play a clip at the after party. It's also an incredible event. The next one is in the Maldives, or we're negotiating with the hotel. So if you're interested in an event in the Maldives, please find Daisy at the after party.
Help us clean up, please, guys.
Hey, everybody, we're getting ready to go zip lining, a bunch of us. So if you want to go zip lining, come on down here because we're going to go.
And if anyone wants to play my Bitcornhole game, I am going to do a demonstration right now.
You gonna do it now?
Are you gonna bring it to the thing?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Oh, if anybody wants one of these paintings, we will be giving them at a significant discount. We are cutting down our storage costs. So some of these will need to go. So we're opening to like bids if anybody wants one of these. Not this one because it has all the signatures. And if any speakers haven't signed this yet, please sign it.